Good morning and welcome to Chamonix. We are in the legendary Place du Mont Blanc and we have a potentially fascinating lead semi-final ahead of us. Charlie Bosco and Mike Langley here to talk you through it. And Mike, we've been here a couple of hours, had a quick look at the routes. Very contrasting. Over on the men's side, quite long moves, reasonably traditional climbing, not too many tricks, we think.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of pressure actually on the route setters this weekend, especially in the semi-final round, because of what happened last week in Villars. Like I said, Charlie, I think it's 48 moves. We're just waiting for confirmation of that on the men's route on the left-hand side. More than 55 moves in the women, and that is kind of, like you said, it's going to be traditional climbing in many ways. Traditional lead climbing, lots of crimps, big stretches, a lot of power endurance. Should be a fascinating show.
Yeah, speaking of the women's side, huge amount of moves. You said our topo only goes up to 53, but there's several holds above that, so we're thinking excess of 55 moves. We're just waiting for final confirmation from the judges. Could be a tricky one to judge for the IFSC officials.
Well, not only is it going to be tricky to judge for the officials, but it's tricky to read for the athletes. I would say I've roughly no way around a route and a bit of route setting. We had to stand at the bottom quite some time with the binoculars out just to try and figure out from the ground what's the difference between foothold, handholds. It holds absolutely everywhere. I think once the route starts to flow though, it should climb in a relatively obvious way. Sometimes with these routes it looks like an absolute disaster from the ground, but as soon as you start climbing it all comes together. There's a foothold where you need it, there's a handhold where it should be. It's going to be an interesting one though, I think.
Well, as well as our route toppers, I've also got the starting list here. There were no big ties in the qualifiers, so we've got the regulation 26 men and 26 women. Let's have a look at the action from yesterday and see how they got here.
Yeah, I feel great and I felt in a great shape. The first route had long moves on the good hold, so it was pumpy, and there was not a single move that stood out in that route. It was just pumpy, and you just had to climb, be relaxed, and just give your best. It had good holds all the way up, not a single move that stood out, so I think it was just the test of endurance.
Quite cool. Like, I think the route is really well set. Like, it's a cool route. The only thing that I didn't like about it was the bad friction, but if it had good friction it would have been amazing to climb on. The left route is quite hard. I think I've only tried the left route so far. Adam is the only top. I'm third place, I think, with 32 plus or something like that. I really struggled with the friction of some of the holds, like especially the slopey holds in the beginning. Had really bad friction to me, and I had to put a lot of effort in and lost a lot of power just to make sure to not slip off the holds, basically. And yeah, it's kind of a not too hard beginning, and then once you enter the steep part, I think it's where it gets really important, because the first 3-4 draws of the steep part decide how far you get in the route, because it's the pumpiest part, I think.
It starts off pretty steady on nice edges, just awkward moves, and quite tenuous on the feet, and then it gets pretty burly in the roof, beefy undercuts, and then there's a really hard move in the middle of the roof that was, I think, intended to be a bit of a dyno. I managed to do the move static, but I was the first climber out, so I kind of didn't really know what I was doing. But yeah, and then it gets really crimpy again, which I quite liked, but I got so pumped. And I got into the head wall at this famous comp, so no, I'm kind of already happy. Right at the top, I was pumped, definitely pumped. I think maybe, I like to think I maybe could have done another move, but I mean, when I got down, my forearms are burning so bad, and I went around the wall and sat down with my head between my hands. I was just and so a few people came and asked if I was okay, and I was yeah, I'm just really pumped. So yeah, I think I'm happy with how I did on that for sure.
it's pretty old school. So really crimpy holes, small feet but good feet, small hole but good hole, and resistance effort. The first part it's the same intensity, good climbing. After we have a good rest, after a volume section, but not really hard, just need to good climbing. Oh, it's a good moment. There is again one route, so it's a good start of competition after Villars to begin with the top.
Yes, welcome back to Chamonix. That man that we saw just there, Romain de Grange, will have high hopes of winning here in his hometown, a long-term Chamonix resident. And who can blame him with that view? Semi-finals coming up here in the Place du Mont Blanc. Let's have a look at the starting list. As I mentioned earlier, 26 men and 26 women through to today's semi-final. I think we'll have a look at the men first. Women first, there we go. Margot Hayes will be first out, snuck into the semi-finals. We are missing a couple of the big hitters. Annette Verhoeven continuing her, we hope, come back from her long-term elbow injury. Also missing Jane Kim, which is a shame. Would have been a real threat, you suspect, here in Chamonix. But it's a strong women's semi-final, and a few climbers with something to prove as well. Molly Thompson-Smith, good to see her back in business after a pretty torrid 18 months with injury. She'll be joined by her compatriot Shauna Coxey. She had a good day yesterday in the qualifiers. Quite happy to admit she got absolutely pumped out of her brain, but did enough to make the semi-final. Jessie Pilz towards the bottom of the screen there. Still doesn't quite seem to have got in the leading groove despite winning the World Championships and a couple of World Cups last year. She needs a big performance here in Chamonix. And you will not be surprised to see that last out, Janja Garnbret, but being provided with some very stiff competition from the most unexpected of sources, from Chaehyun Seo, who ran her close in Villars, second in Villars, and also found two tops yesterday in the qualifiers here in Chamonix. So Janja got some real competition from a source we may not have expected coming into the season. Over on the men's side, again, very, very strong semi-final. Interesting to see how Jan Hoyer gets on. Again, doesn't quite seem to have got in the groove. We have seen him in lead finals before, but needs a big performance to convert 24th in the qualifiers into top 8 in the semi-finals. Nathaniel Coleman as well, a bit low down the order. Interesting to see how he goes on. We often see him in doing well in bouldering World Cups. His compatriot Sean Bailey as well feels like he's due a big result. And he'll be out just before halfway. Jongwon Chon, one of the other bigger names in that part of the draw, and Domen Skofic, you can see there. He'll be climbing 19th. Looking forward to seeing him after he made the final last week in Villars. Stefano Ghisolfi, a man with a bit to prove after a bad result in Villars. Ditto Jakob Schubert, but what a lineup that is for the last 6 out. Stefano, followed by Kai Harada, then Jakob Schubert, Romain de Grange, the hometown hero, Alex Megos and Adam Ondra. And Mike, it was Adam who stood out for you yesterday.
Well, definitely. I think at this stage in the season, just the second competition, it's quite interesting to see who's got it and who hasn't at this early on in the competitions kind of series. And yesterday, like you say, Charlie, Adam Ondra just seemed to be up there with his good old self, really. There's this wrist injury, you know, is it bad, is it not? But seemingly, going by how he climbed yesterday, 2 tops, only climbing to get 2 tops, he looked very impressive. And to be honest, he was flowing really nicely. I think Adam Ondra is definitely going to be the one to beat in the men's competition here. Yeah,
I think judging by his performance yesterday, missing Villars was very much a precaution, because this slight wrist injury it's on his left wrist, does not seem to be holding him back at all. Just something to keep an eye out. I chatted to Adam yesterday and he said the wrist is fine. It causes him problems if he has a very prolonged hang on it, or also any sort of twisting movement. There's a slight aggravation in one of the tendons just where you take your pulse, kind of just underneath the palm of the hand. So as I say, any prolonged hang, which doesn't seem out of the question on a lead route, and any sort of twisting movement is what he says aggravates it, but very clear from yesterday that it is a minor injury and not something we're expecting to hold him back too much, probably this weekend and certainly for the rest of the season.
Well, I think going forward for the rest of the season, Charlie, with the World Championships coming up and obviously Tokyo next year, some of the competitors have got to be very, very careful in these competitions. You might start to see them cherry-picking which events they do based on how they're feeling fitness-wise. someone like Jane Kim to get that big injury is heartbreaking, really.
So Mccoll, Asia, Lina Cesaro Molina of Spain has just got underway. Margot Hayes also underway on the women's route. So the men are on the left here in Chamonix, the women are on the right. You can see the women's route there, taking the yellow and black holds all the way to the top of this wall. The wall will look very familiar to regular IFSC viewers. It's been put to use for many years here in Chamonix. It was also the wall used for the 2016 World Championships. Who could forget that, with Adam Ondra the top, the last climber of the week. And the men's route playing out as we expected so far. It's big moves, we don't think, not too many tricks, not expecting people to really make too many route finding errors. It's just power, endurance, big moves, and if you were to make a slight mistake in your body position or led with the wrong hand, it's hard to imagine coming back from a lot of the moves. Are very committing just because of the sheer distance you have to cover with them.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is people pumping out rather than kind of falling off because of a trick or a jump. Good flow here. It's good camera angle. You can really see up and close what climbers have got against them really early on in the route here.
Yeah, you can also see just what a magnificent setting it is here in Chamonix. Mont Blanc behind, the sun is out, nice bit of cloud just keeping the temperature down. Conditions actually very good for climbing the walls, really in the shade, so friction excellent. And Mccoll already with a big fight on his hands. Margot Hayes still going. She's just entered the second panel of the Chamonix wall, so the wall's divided into 4 panels. She's just entered the steepest section, which is about half the length of the wall, and then it eases off again at the head wall.
Yeah, she's around move 20, 21 at the moment of, I believe it's 57, but they're still unconfirmed. I don't think they've got big enough pieces of paper here in Chamonix to print us one that goes all the way to the top.
Bear in mind, there is an element of judgment of just exactly how many moves there are of what climbers will use as handholds, so it's not always entirely clear cut just according to how many holds were put on the wall. There is a bit of judgment about what is a handhold.
Well, it is actually an organic process as well, because if a new sequence develops where the route setters didn't see one before, certain footholds get started to be used regularly as handholds, the numbering can actually change during the route. Yeah, just to add to the judges' woes and issues.
I think though this will be a hard route to judge because there are so many holds, there are so many moves. They're going to have to pay such close attention to exactly where the climber was if and when they fall.
I think a route like this could really suit someone like Margot Hayes, although she's starting to look a little bit pumped there on the left arm. Trying to put an early fight in here around move 30. And goes. Interesting. I was just about to say, I think this route could play really well into Margot's style, that outdoor rock climbing style that she has. Climbed such hard routes outdoors, but Margot Hayes out first. Potentially an early fall, but at this stage of the competition, the first climbers, it's really hard to know what's going to happen. Last week, many climbers in the female competition fell off on the same move, around halfway up the route. Let's hope for something slightly different this week.
Yeah, Camille Pouget of France, first French climber out, will be next out, and Marcello Bombardi has got underway, former winner here in Chamonix. You might remember in 2017 he'd never been in a World Cup final, made it into the final in Chamonix. I remember watching him almost dance across the Place du Mont Blanc with delight at making the final, and then he won it. No wins since then, it's still his only win, and Italy seems to have had something of a monopoly on the men's competition here in Chamonix the last couple of years, because last year it was Stefano Ghisolfi who won it. So can they make it 3 from 3? Anyway, Marcello underway in a venue that will always be very special to him, that's for sure.
Yeah, we were talking about that 2017 Chamonix men's final just last week on the live stream of Villars, if you were there joining us for that, just saying, because there were so many tops in that competition as well, kind of quite similar to what we saw last week. But I think the route setters would have learnt a lot from the mistakes last week. Completely different team here this week though, but obviously they would have been chatting and seeing the differences. Such a hard job as always for the route setters. Had good qualifiers yesterday though, so I think they're feeling pretty confident at the moment.
Still just looking across, Camille Pouget is just pulling onto the wall right now. We'll keep you up to date with her progress as we stay with Marcello. Remember, 26 men and 26 women here, and they're looking for 8 spots in the final, 8 men and 8 women. Ties are possible, but hopefully we won't have any. We will have the regulation 8 through. You can see there Camille Pouget on the small screen. And here's Marcello. As I mentioned when we were talking about Margot Hayes, the very steepest section of the wall, which is about half the length of the wall, Marcello's just entered now, and it gets pretty physical from here on out. Hidden blue hole, by the way, there on the top of that volume. You can only just see it. There it is. It's quite well disguised. I think the climbers will have spotted it in observation. It was pretty well chalked up, but if there was a hole they were going to miss, that might be the one, but I think they've all spotted it.
Yeah, I think luckily it suits the sequence quite well. There should be a hold there, and there is a hold there, luckily. The way the sequence naturally leads you through to that blue hold. So it's suggesting that could be slightly more dynamic to that blue hold than we're seeing here from Marcello, but he's got that really sort of powerful lock-off style that he's using to good effect so far. It does look horrendously hard, this section on the men's route. Feet are out on the right-hand side at the moment, it's just on smears up against the right-hand volume. You can see him just flat footing, really. And just a big fight here from Marcello early on. Going up with the left hand. I think he needs his right hand on that potentially. Let's see. That looks comfortable though. That does seem to work. My mistake.
Yeah, I mean, this really is a power endurance route, and you only need to take one look at Marcello Bombardi to see that he's not lacking in the power endurance stakes, but you can tell just from the look on his face and the elbows beginning to come out that he's already got a fight on his hands. Just to let you know, Margot Hayes, she got a 32 on the women's route. So slightly over halfway in terms of number of holes. And at this stage of the semi-final, we can't make any predictions of whether that will be enough. And Marcello looked like he was fighting really for the last half a dozen moves. And we lose him at mid-height. Here is Camille Pouget, just onto the very steepest section of the wall. And you can see just how complex this women's route is. So many holes, so many volumes, so many different methods. Mike and I were speculating that if we were observing this route, it might just have come out and gone, I'll figure it out when I get up there. It's so complicated. Well, perhaps not complicated, but there's just so many moves.
Yeah, a lot of moves, which is a lot of moves to remember. Co-commentator last week, Will Bowes, was saying that usually for an observation he remembers 95% of the route. 95% of nearly 60 moves is a serious amount of remembering to do. So I think, like you say, just coming out here and just kind of feeling it out. Hopefully, as the route setter describes to us, in the end the sequences are relatively basic. Nothing too confusing potentially. But when you've got a lot of foot options, you've got to make quick decisions. Trying to avoid the pump, just decide on your method and stick with it, and just a bit of a fumble there. There was a little rattle of the left foot and a fumble of the left hand that followed, unfortunately, from Camille Pouget.
I was quite excited about you doing the maths on what 95% of 61 was. Mike, let me down. You bailed on the maths.
I was getting too excited about the climbers on the wall. I haven't got time for maths.
I haven't got the brain power. Petra Klingler out next alongside Jan Hoyer. Two climbers that we see more on the bouldering wall, but very much all-rounders these days. Petra, of course, the 2016 world champion. Jan Hoyer needs very minimal introduction, multiple World Cup winner.
Yeah, two climbers, quite excitingly. We'll definitely, never say definitely, but we'll probably see really high up in the rankings of the combined. See them both out here in Chamonix. Petra made the semi-finals last week. I was out first actually in the semi-finals, so a little bit of an improvement on last week for Petra. And, if you saw Jan Hoyer's social media at all, you could see it's quite an interesting moment for him on the qualifying route. We had 2 or 3 goes at the same move that he was kind of joking with himself about. Hopefully no such mistakes today. Looks like he's absolutely motoring through this first section. Usual boulderer's quick pace that's sometimes required if you've not got the resistance that you need in the forearms.
I remember Jan was co-commentating with me in Wujiang a couple of years ago, and he was quite open about the fact that his tactics, certainly at that stage of his lead climbing career, was just to motor as fast as he could before he got pumped. And it seemed to work for him. I think he's slightly down on his leading ability. He's a much better lead climber than he'd like to have you think. But yeah, definitely going for the just get it as much done as fast as you can option, which I think is well advised at all times, but especially on a route like this, where it's just long, big moves, you might as well just keep motoring.
Nice little cross-through section there, down with the left hand, using the width of the wall here really nicely, the route setters. Nice bit of flow through this early route. You can see just Jan Hoyer's feet just chopping between all the different foothold options. Really clean, really smooth, really experienced.
Yeah, we've already had a couple of double clips from him where he's managed to clip 2 quick draws at the same time. It's a nice little energy saver if you can find a relatively comfortable position to do it and get 2 clips. It means there's 1 less position to find. So Jan Hoyer powering towards the top of the big red volume, but he just, I think, got the sequence slightly wrong. Be interesting to see that again. I was actually turned around looking at him live rather than looking at our screen. Be interesting to see Jan Hoyer again there. Looked perhaps missed a sweet spot on that hold.
Well, I think that move around hold 29-30, that is where the route really starts to kick in, and at that point it's just kind of a little bit of resistance to get there. All of a sudden, I think that's where we're going to start seeing the separation. If you can get through that section with those undercut side pulls and smearing out on the right hand side cleanly, better chance of progressing further up the wall. But good to see Petra up and a bit closer than we saw in the small screen just earlier on the women's route.
Camille Pouget, by the way, 36 plus, sorry to interrupt you, Mike, has 4 and a plus moves further than Margot Hayes. As you said, this is a great camera angle. You see the part of the Mont Blanc Massif behind Petra, and she's really got a scrap on her hands now. I can turn over behind my shoulder and get a close-up look at it, and she just beginning to pant a little bit, really having to work hard through this section. You can just see in her movements a little more jerky as the pump really begins to kick in.
So as we start to familiarise ourselves with this route, that's hold 32. Where we saw Margot Hayes get to, so the high point's a couple of moves higher still, and we do lose Petra, a big fall.
Slightly awkward fall, seems to be okay.
Yeah, a bit of a shout out actually to Magdalena Rock, who received an injury yesterday, pretty serious arm blow on the wall during her first qualifying route, so get well soon to her.
Yeah, really the last thing she needs, Magda Rock. Had a series of injuries, coming back. It was really enjoyable to watch her back on the lead wall. Former World Cup winner, of course. And yeah, did take a pretty nasty bang, swung back into the wall as she fell. The belays here are generally, we use the PGHM, they're basically the High Mountain Police, the Mountain Rescue. They definitely know their way around a climbing wall, so the belayers are exceptional here in France, and she just got a bit of a nasty fall.
Well, I think that you'll see throughout this semi-final, no doubt the climbers leave nothing behind. They will go for absolutely everything, no matter what the fall is potentially going to be like. And it's quite common in lead climbing competition to see some pretty tasty falls. We saw Petra just spinning a little bit there. We've seen a few flips, a few inverts. You know, they really do give it everything. And yeah, to be a belayer at this level is a stressful job.
Yeah, it is. As I say, the belayers are exceptional, and for Magda Rock, it was just unfortunate. She got a nice soft catch off the belayer, but just the way she fell just meant she clobbered the wall. So yeah, get well soon to Magda. It was nice to see her back lead climbing, albeit briefly. Here goes Sean Mccoll anyway, heading out right, very much on the very steep section of the wall. There's that very familiar, enormous red triangle. I was going to call it a volume. It's not really, it's a lot bigger than a volume. It's the size of some climbing walls, right in the middle of the Chamonix wall here. Very distinctive feature, and Sean heading out towards it now, got his right foot on that blue volume. And you can see it's long move after long move.
Yeah, that first punch to the second side pull there is really the move that's going to separate people. I think Sean's just fumbled the clip there a little bit, actually. Goes back for it now. He's going to have to burn a little bit of energy just getting that sorted. The rope's still not in. There it is.
Sean trying to, I think, manufacture something of a rest, just to slightly regain his thoughts a bit after that fumble clip, but you can see there isn't a lot of opportunity to rest. Same on the women's route as well. There are places where you can pause, but to call them rests I think would be a little too generous.
This is looking good from Sean. He's managed to get through that side pull section with the smears on the right hand side quite nicely, actually. He's starting to breathe pretty hard though. This is going to be the first really interesting, potentially big separation move here on the men's competition, matching this rail and potentially a little pop outside to the left-hand side. Let's have a good look at this. Does go for it, double blocked, and there's the swing.
Got a real fight in his hands now. Sean goes for the figure of 4. Crowd love that.
Yeah, Rousset has described that as a campus to us. One way of getting away without campusing is to drop a figure 4. Good to use, but hard to get out of.
Yeah, there was interesting from Sean. He got the figure of 4 and then didn't seem to be able to find a way out of it.
Yeah, I think his forearms might have been a bit of an issue at that stage, to be honest.
Here's Miho Nanaka. season champion in the bouldering in 2018. We've got the season champion from the bouldering in 2019 coming up, climbing last in the lead. And Miho, looking strong, was struggling with a couple of shoulder injuries towards the end of last season, and then again injured the other shoulder earlier this year, but pleased to report that they're not really troubling her too much now, and you can see no strapping on them, which is always a good sign as well.
We just touched on it a little bit earlier, but the ability to avoid injury leading up to the World Championships and then further on into Tokyo 2020 is going to be really interesting to see what the different teams' tactics are. And she just loses it, unfortunately, there.
And we lost Miho very early on.
Yeah, she seemed to. We're just focusing on the heel hook that she had there, but just not quite sure what happened there, actually, unfortunately. Bit of a tangle.
She looks frustrated. Her compatriot Taisei Homer is out now, and another of her compatriots, Futaba Ito, will be next onto the women's route. Kiyo Noguchi still to come as well for Japan, amongst others. Natsuki Tani, Ai Mori, who's looking a real threat in the lead climbing. So Taisei Homer gets his attempt underway on this men's semi-final route. If you're just tuning in, good morning. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday morning. Charlie Bosco and Mike Langley here. We're live in the Place du Mont Blanc in Chamonix, perhaps the most legendary of all the IFSC venues. Mont Blanc is visible behind, the sun is shining, bit of cloud just keeping the temperature down. It can't really get any better than this. Temperature on the wall itself, pretty chilly. We're in the shade right here, and it's just about t-shirt weather, I would say. Somewhere I would say between 10 and 15 degrees. Nice and dry, not a lot of humidity. Conditions I would imagine on the wall, absolutely superb.
Well, it's early to say yet with 26 climbers in this semi-final, but so far so good for the routes. These are looking like an excellent pair of power, endurance, crimpy, old school routes. A lot of climbers were calling for that after last week. Very different styles. It shows that the route setters can ask different questions, different weeks.
Yeah, there's clearly one tough move on the women's side. I'm just looking at the scores. Camille Pouget still leading the way as it stands on a 36 plus, and then you've got Petra Klingler and Miho Nanaka got 32 plus and 32 for Margot Hayes. So the move around 32, we'll point it out when the next climber gets there, is clearly one of the cruxes, but as you say, pretty clear that there are multiple opportunities to bin it on this route for both the men and the women. It's power endurance, no particular cruxes, but no particular easy sections either. Taisei Homer looks like he's just got himself ever so slightly tied in knots here.
Always one fascinating thing to look at for the route setters at home is how little opportunity there are for these climbers to shake both hands quite close to each other. So this is a decent example right here. There's two holes quite close to each other. The sequence is slightly round the wrong way, but very rarely in lead climbing competitions do you get a left hand and right hand with a decent foot so you can take on chalk and kind of get a little bit back. Taisei Homer just shaking out here. He needs to flip the hands round and then he'll just go powering left, right, left, right. Very rarely do we see two holes close together in a lead climbing competition where you can actually get something back.
Futaba Ito on the small screen there. Such a promising climber. Surely a World Cup win, multiple World Cup wins beckons for her. Oh, we lose Taisei Homer low down. He was just about a third of the way up the steep section on the wall. That's a disappointing result for him. Let's keep an eye on Futaba. Sean Mccoll leading the way over on the men's side, 36 for him, 29 plus for Jan Hoyer, 29 for Marcello Bombardi, and Mccoll down on 25 plus.
See how steep that section of the wall is there. There's a pretty good handhold that she's managed to get two hands and a foot on, but it's so steep the way that the route setters use that volume. So that is the steepest section of the wall, around 40 degrees overhanging. So you pile on a few volumes and it gets much steeper than that all of a sudden.
So yeah, just look at those scores. Actually, it's clearly around the 32 hold for the women and 29 for the men is going to be one of the stopping points. We lose Futaba low down as well. Let's have a look what hold that was. Was that around the 32? We will consult our route toppers. She was somewhere in that region. A bit lower actually, I think somewhere around the 27, 28. It gets so complex in there.
Yeah, a bit
certainly
disappointing for Tabo. Sorry to interrupt the child. I think she's really struggling to string together the potential that she has actually on the wall. One of the real superstars in the up and coming ranks of the Japanese setup, struggling at the moment to put the results where they should be for Tabo.
Here's Rei Sugimoto, two-time Boulder World Cup winner, only seems to win in the famous places. He's won in Vail, he's won in Munich. Could he win here in Chamonix in the lead? We shall see. He's underway with his semi-final. Vita Lucan, our first Slovenian, will be the next climber on the women's route. Ray underway.
19 years old, Vita Lucan.
Vita Lucan just been announced to the crowd. So 36 plus from Camille Pouget is still the best score. For Taba Ito's has just flashed up 26 plus, so she was 5 moves short of that 32 hold. We'll point out, as I said earlier, we'll point out hold 32 the next time we see someone get there. It's just on a transition onto the red volume. Meanwhile, Ray, seemingly untroubled so far, but things are about to get an awful lot steeper right about now. Slightly awkward clip there, we've got to reach over your shoulder, but yeah, Ray does well.
Yeah, so there's a number of awkward clips actually. I think that's mostly due to the way that the route setters have used so many side pulls and undercuts on this route with wide feet.
Longer draws also a bit more awkward to clip as well. They can swing around a little bit more, can be a little harder to grab.
They can twist a bit as well, and the climbers in this stage of the climbing ability level, they don't worry about quick draws being back clipped or quite round the wrong way. Let's push on. Nice long draws are always twisting. Don't seem to worry about that element of safety quite so much as some of the recreational climbers may do at home or outdoor on the rock. So another slightly awkward clip where it just hangs over his neck and shoulder. Just to remove it, climbers can grab the quick draw as long as they don't pull on it or weight it. Bring the draw to them. See, that's a good example there. Clip, kind of a really long draw that's a bit twisted. It's really behind Ray there. So many side pulls, Gastons. This one, complicated sequence. Ray's looking really pumped all of a sudden.
Yeah, and that's around the same place. It's the hole 29.30. So Ray's going to be another of the men on that 29, somewhere in that region. You're definitely going to need to push through that section, I think, and get close to or probably on the head wall. I think to guarantee yourself a place in the final would be a very early and likely inaccurate prediction, but that's my best guess at this stage. Here's Vita Lucan, Youth World Champion from last year in Moscow. We had 10 great days in Moscow last August. We'll be in Japan this August, World Championships in Hachioji. Vita, take your time. I think probably well advised, because once you launch into this section, it's a lot of moves. And energy-wise, it'd be very hard if you made a mistake to then correct it. So she's taken a reasonably good break, and now she can launch into the complex series of crimps and black volumes.
Theme, sorry Charlie, theme in both the men's and the women's is lots of side pull edges with really wide feet, so loads of body tension required. It really starts to take it out of your whole body, this route, rather than just your forearms.
You can see just legs quivering slightly with the effort of keeping them in place. Hole 32 is that one right there, so that's the hold where we've had a few climbers fall. Petra Klingler, Miho Nanaka and Margot Hayes all falling on or around that hold, and Vita really with the last thing she wants, which is a very awkward clip, and she hasn't managed to get it done. A big energy loss there. Remember, she can't climb beyond the quick draw, she's got to get it clipped for safety reasons. She can't just choose to skip a quick draw out in lead climbing. You've got to get it, you've got to get all the quick draws clipped. So now she's found what looks to be a slightly better position. This would be a good score from her. Just look at our route map. It's around hole 36.
A bit of a sigh from the crowd again, because she fumbled the clip for the second time, having sort of done really well to fight past the position that she was struggling in, and then gets a double. That's good recovery from Vita. That's good, clever climbing.
Yeah, that's this section she's on now is about as close as there is to a rest on the women's route. The route setter said right where she is now is about as close as she'll get to a break, and it actually, from the ground, it doesn't look like it'll be a particularly good rest, but Vita looks like she's really getting a bit of energy back, hanging there.
Well, I think she really needs it as well. It's put a big fight through that section. Let's see how much she's actually got back in the forearms in this next section.
Yuki Harada just started on the men's route as Vita Lucan really getting the crowd pumped up now as well. They know this is the best attempt yet on the women's route, up into the 40s for number of holds, and that will be a new high point for Vita Lucan, somewhere around hole 40-41. Certainly a new high point and a really good effort. Can't wonder what might have been had she not struggled with that clip.
Yeah, I think it could have been an extra 2 or 3 moves potentially there for Vita. Really cool sequence through that bit where she was struggling with the quick draw, feet go first. Nice little bit of work there from the route setters.
So yeah, really liking the look of these routes so far. We've got decent separation of the climbers, and it's coming down to a real fight. There doesn't seem to be any real tricks or any really funky little move that's stopping people. It's just who can hang on the longest, who can fight the longest, who can be the most accurate, who can read the route the best. Really good start to the semi-final, enjoying this so far.
Well, tip of the hat as well to Ellen Janico, who I would say maybe one of the first females to set in the lead competition.
Yeah, a former competitor. We did an interview with her which went up on the IFSC Facebook page this morning. You can check that out. Yeah, really, she's really enjoying the transition to route setting, I think. After competing, it's a completely different challenge. Great tool for the route setters to have as well, to have someone who's so current, so fresh from competing, to really give them an insight into whether they've got the level right and the micro details that it's hard for anyone but a competitor to know. Yuki Harada now, just got himself a little bit tied up and suddenly looked very tired very quickly. Eloise Dumont, first Belgian climber out here in Chamonix. There we can see the scores. It was a 40 plus for Vita Lucan. Just walked past us, Vita Lucan. Look at her forearms. They've had a workout today, that is for sure. So all she can do now is wait as climbers come and go and see if that is enough for a place in the top 8. Sean Mccoll still leading the way, 36 over on the men's side. And Nathaniel Coleman will be next out of the USA over on the men's side. No sign of him on the stage just yet. He's just appeared right now. So we'll stick with Eloise Dumont as she heads up the women's route. Bit of a breeze here in Chamonix just picked up. The temperature actually dropping despite the sun getting higher in the sky. And as I say, conditions on the wall still absolutely excellent.
Yeah, the wall here, I think the sun comes into it about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So nice early semi-final here put on by the organisers just to give a bit of time for the wall to stay nice and cool as we go through the semi-final round. Nice little double early slip. That was one of the first sort of really low risk moves that the route setters put in. Not too many climbers actually struggled up to that point, but Eloise Dumont unfortunately just drops it around there. Molly Thompson-Smith from Great Britain will be out next in the women's competition, but it's Nathaniel Coleman, Boulder World Cup winner on the wall. Could see him in the lead competition.
C'est vrai qu'en difficulté, on voit de plus en plus de mouvements de style bloc. Bien qu'ici à Chamonix, moi je trouve qu'ils ont trouvé le juste dosage entre la résistance et puis un peu le spectacle.
Just have a look, see what sort of level of endurance Nathaniel Coleman has. Said Sean Mccoll is the leader at the moment at 36. Can't help but think that with a route like this, with not too many tricks on it, the high chances that the climbers with the best power endurance, best resistance to the pump are going to be the ones getting closer to the top of the route. Said not too many tricks on this one, and we've seen that in the qualifiers. Let's focus on the men's competition. Adam Andrew, Alex Magos, Stefano Ghisolfi, kind of really good, solid, traditional route climbers in many ways. See them right up there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Here's Nathaniel Coleman, co-commentated with me in Chongqing. I think because our room was air conditioned.
Yeah, there's a queue of co-commentators
exactly.
waiting on that one.
Yeah, a lot of the Chinese workers who set the venue up were putting their hand up to commentate. Just about bus driver volunteered. Amazing how popular you are when you've got aircon in Chongqing.
And Coleman's looking pretty pumped pretty early on here.
Yeah, amazing how it kicked in with Nathaniel. He looks super smooth, but it's just that change in angle kills you. You feel like you're going fine, and then suddenly it just gets absolutely unrelenting through the middle section.
Bit of a power scream there for Nathaniel. Crowd gets behind him because he's trying really hard here. He's pushing through. Despite the pump, you can see him breathing hard. Actually almost hearing how hard he's breathing from our commentary position, 10 or so metres away from the wall.
Yeah, he's really got a fight on his hands here, getting a lot of encouragement for the other members of Team USA, as you would imagine. That's him up to hole 31, so this is a good effort. That's 32 right there.
Yeah, all sorts of trouble here though, Charlie, because there's clips down below his feet now. In theory, it's okay if he can still reach down to it, and he can't.
That's the end of Nathaniel Coleman. You got to clip the. You can't climb past the point at which you can clip the quick draw. So Nathaniel Coleman, well aware of that.
Yeah, that was one of those situations where you're so pumped you can't take a hand off to clip the rope, but all you can do is go to the next hold. Then you get to the next hold and you're in the same position again and again until you get to a point where you can no longer reach the quick draw and you inevitably fall off.
Well, at this level of climbing, getting the clips is essentially a move in itself. It's a whole skill in itself, being able to free up a hand long enough to do it smoothly. No use getting a hand off if you're then shaking and you can't get the clip done, which is what we've seen from a couple of climbers where they've been able to touch the quick draw, they've been able to touch the rope, but they haven't been able to put two together.
Yeah, it's actually quite intelligent climbing though. If you're so pumped you can't clip the quick draws, you might as well go and get a couple of more points in the bag before you drop off.
The problem is though, you stop being awarded points once you get beyond a point at which you could clip the quick draw, so the judges will say you couldn't have clipped the quick draw from there, so anything you do after that is not awarded to you. So it's a fine line.
Yeah.
It's certainly a move in itself, clipping quick draws at this level, that's for sure. Here's Molly Thompson-Smith. She's another person who's had a pretty torrid time with injury, primarily finger injuries, but looking pretty solid so far, heading up towards this. She's on hold 32 now, which is where we've lost 3 climbers so far, and looking relatively untroubled, and that's not actually the best rest spot. The best one is coming up now where we saw Vita Lucan, so Molly can do another couple of moves from here and she'll earn herself another rest should she choose to take it.
It's actually a similar sort of position on the route to the men's competition where the route really starts kicking around the 30, 31, 32 department in both the men's and the women's competition. Where the route really starts to kick in, but really nice route reading there from Molly, just floating around on the feet a little bit, looking really solid. Looks like she's choosing, let's see if she's going to choose to rest. Seems to have gone past the rest, feeling quite confident, or hasn't seen the rest and now is pushing on into Vita Lucan territory.
Yeah, this is going to be probably a new high point from Molly.
Another super awkward clip there. She's going to get it from this position, but massive amount of lock-off power needed. Looks like she's just going to try and get a couple of extra points.
Yeah, Will Bosey on the wall as well, so it's Team GB on both left and right now. Molly needs to figure out how to get that clip. I'm just looking, the clip's actually over to her left. It looks like it's right in front of her. You can see it's actually well over to the left, so she could do with actually coming back, which is super frustrating when you've got to reverse a move. She's really struggling to figure out how to get that clip, and she just can't get her hand round to the right.
Yeah, I think she's massively disappointed that she didn't take the clipping position when it was on offer, unfortunately, and then that was almost exactly like Nathaniel Coleman, just couldn't find the perfect position to clip, went one move too far really, and at which point you're either going to have to down climb or you're in big trouble. Let's see how Will Bosey gets on though. Likes it here in Chamonix, has made finals before, like you said, Charlie, and it was pretty good last week. Had one really good qualifying route and not so good on the other. So he joined me for the co-commentary for the men's finals.
He was good in the commentary box, yeah. Always rather see him on the wall, but as you say, just final here last year in Chamonix. Molly Thompson-Smith waiting for her score to come through. I think that's going to be a 42 myself, which would be a new high point. Vita Lucan was holding the high point at 40 plus, and Will Bosey, as you can see, is absolutely rocketed up, and I think that was him waving to the crowd asking for a bit of encouragement. That's what we like to see.
Oh, so strong on the left arm. We saw Sean Mccoll at that stage take a bit of a swing and a cut loose. Figure 4 this section. This is high point territory now. He's gone past Sean Mccoll and is into new territory for us.
This is a brilliant effort from Will Bosey. The head wall beckons. So he got a couple of moves ahead of Sean Mccoll. Will it be enough for a final? We shall see, but it is a high point. 8 men and 8 women will progress to the final this evening here in Chamonix. And Will looks pretty happy with that. And as I say, he turned to get the crowd pumped up.
Yeah, he's actually quite known for that, actually. He did that before here in Chamonix. Just take an opportunity to take in the few thousand spectators that are right behind him.
Eloise Dumont, the French team, got very high hopes for her, and from what we saw during the bouldering season, they've got good reason to have high hopes. She looks a really promising young climber. Very, very strong, very focused in the competitions. Really seems to tick all the boxes for a good competition climber. And looking forward to seeing how she gets on here in her first Home World Cup of the season. Of course, we've got another Home World Cup for the French team. Next weekend we are in Briançon in the southern Alps, at the confluence of some of the major valleys in the Alps, a couple of hours to the west of Turin. But this weekend we are in Chamonix, perhaps the most famous alpine town of all, right underneath the foot of Mont Blanc. So it's 2 Home World Cups in a row for the French climbers. And Eloise Dumont well underway on the women's route. And Alastair Duval, also of France, will be next out on the men's route. He's the 10th climber out, by the way. Eloise Dumont is the 9th climber out on the women's route, and of course there's a cleaning break after the 13th climber on each route.
Solid there for Eloise Dumont. It's about 20 moves to get to that point, and a lot of the climbers taking this rest that the route says are put in just before the real steep stuff really kicks in. You can see it's a good hold, but it's really, really steep there, so just enough to get a little bit back in the forearms, but he won't be hanging around there for too long, I don't imagine.
So we saw Molly Thompson-Smith take relatively, not Molly Thompson-Smith, who do we see resting down there? Semi-finals already passing me by. I think it was Vita Luke, and yeah, we've seen climbers take a long rest there. Here is Alastair Duval, closest to the camera, both French climbers cutting off in unison. This Duardi suddenly looks like she's got a fight on her hands. Very powerful position to hold. Both elbows locked at 90 degrees, and it doesn't help when the feet come off like that. She's heading up for hole 32. Can she get there? Can she hang on to it? She can't. Eloise Dumont gave that one absolutely everything, but when the pump came, it came quickly.
Yeah, I'd say these are excellent battles to watch from the climbers. It's really good to see the elbows coming up, the pump getting really real, kind of between, let's say, sort of 2/4 of the way up the route. Really, really good fights. Good to see the climbers pumped. I think that's what we really want to see.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how Janja Garnbret gets on here. We've seen it so many times in lead and in boulder, where people have looked like they're really struggling. The routes look like they might even been overcooked, and then she absolutely cruises it. So it'll be interesting to see how she gets on. And of course, the climbers are coming in reverse order from how they qualified, so theoretically we've got the strongest climbers coming out last. Obviously, generally doesn't work that way, but that's the theory. Alastair Duval having a pretty good stab at this men's route.
Yeah, we've seen Sean and Will Bosey go through this section. A lot of French support for Alastair obviously here, but let's see how he deals with his big cut loose. Fails on the lock off there, unfortunately. That's where we saw Will busting out there and just floating with the one hand lock off. And Sean Mccoll went into that figure 4 section. So that is kind of a real interesting section once you get through all those big, kind of that epic side pull journey up the side of the red volumes. Get into a nice kind of section with no feet, and then very close to the head wall. Yeah. Looking about the right level for this stage in the competition so far.
Yeah, I think if we had people really pushing high onto the head wall, or getting close to or to the top, they might feel the route is a bit undercooked. As it is, it looks like they've got it pretty spot on.
Well, in that men's competition, we've seen Will up there around hold 42. yeah, 42, 40, something like that, with a top hold of 48. It's not actually a million miles to go. You can see it there on your screen on the left-hand side. Over that headwall, it's actually quite straight to the top from that point onwards. So with a lot of competitors still to come, it's going to be interesting to see if we find a top and how many. So it's not about a top though, it's about getting separation between the athletes.
Evgenia Kazbekova of the Ukraine, another real all-rounder. We're just thinking about the Olympics. Bear in mind, each country can only take 2 climbers, and I don't see who else the Ukraine might take ahead of Evgenia. She is looking super strong in multiple disciplines now.
Yeah, made the Munich Boulder Finals, 12th last week in Villars. Good all-rounder.
Very good all-rounder. Is that someone leaning out of their balcony to watch the action here? It's great here in Chamonix. There are lots of places from which to watch the action that aren't the Place du Mont Blanc. You've got a balcony and you've got it an Airbnb this weekend, you'd absolutely clean up. Yeah, there we see right behind Evgenia, someone's kind of sitting on the roof. Very brave, very dedicated to their climbing.
Yeah, it's good though. If you got that view plus your kitchen, get a few bacon sandwiches, cup of tea on the go, you're in the perfect spot.
Just having a look who's out next. Martin Bergant of Slovenia will be next on the men's route. He is well underway actually. Just turn around to have a look. There he is, climbing into the shot with perfect timing. So if this was a speed competition, he's caught and maybe about to pass Evgenia Kazbekova. So he's wasting no time on the men's route. The climbers, I suspect, from observation and also from being behind the wall and figuring out how long climbers are taking, will have a pretty good idea that these routes are pretty pumping. You've got to get on with them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those ones where a lot of climbers coming back to isolation zone, their forearms absolutely flamed, and just kind of head in the hands and just wait for the pump to kind of drift away. When it gets pumped like that, you know, climbers at home, it just makes you feel so sick. You just got to let that pass, and I think that's going to be what the vibe is generally from backstage.
So Evgenia Kazbekova fighting up this 32 hold, which was looking like one of the cruxes, still looks like one of the cruxes now actually. Evgenia, just like so many of the climbers we've seen, suddenly that pump just starts to flood into the forearms. We also lost Martin Bergant as well, just waiting for his score to pop up. Mike Langley's done a sterling job there, basically rugby tackling Will Bose as he walked past. So we can ask him how the route was, just as we have with perfect timing, both of the climbers untying. Will, welcome.
Yeah,
that looked a pumpy route.
Yeah, that was absolutely boxed out my mind on that. It's just so consistent, there's like no place you can stop, and each hold, I mean, I've got blood coming out my fingertips, that's how hard I was crimping on them. So.
And what was the lower section like? It looks like it's not too bad, and then when the angle steepens, it really kicks in.
Yeah, definitely. Lower section's not bad, but the only problem with it is the moves are a little unsecure, so you know you just have to keep going, otherwise you're going to burn so much energy.
When you say insecure, you mean in terms of body position, the foothold slightly awkward?
Yeah, so none of the holds in the first bit are in-cut either, so they're all good, but they are open, so you're not like, you can't, if a foot was to pop, you would come off, so you have to really like drive in with your feet and keep the core tension, which is obviously tiring for them when you hit the steep.
And did you get a chance during observation or when you were up there to have a look at the head wall? What do you think that might hold?
I mean, yeah, I had a quick look. To be honest, like most of the route, it's not too complex, I think, quite basic. I mean, I think we'll definitely see some people up there in the later half of this semi for sure. It just looks hard. There's not too much trickery, I would have said.
And you've got a bit of an anxious wait now. You're currently leading the standings. What's it like watching this semi-final, just sort of hoping you make it in? You nervous, or do you just think, hey, what will be, will be?
It's a really hard one. So last year I was actually in the exact same position and I made my first final. And I only got halfway up the route. I got way lower than I did today. But I wasn't nervous at all because I was like, oh, I've done well regardless. But this time it's like, oh, you know, I'm actually leading. So I'm not going to lie, I'm quite nervous.
Okay. All right, we'll let you go get a double espresso or whatever you need. Hey, thanks for talking to us, and great job. Yeah, as I say, you're leading the standings. You can't do it any better than that right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Great work from Mike Langley, going back to his days in the school third 15 rugby tackling.
Yeah, he had no chance.
Yeah, interesting to hear from Will Bosey. I'll talk in just a second. We just got Christine Schranz just got underway, climber number 11 over on the women's side. So a couple more climbers, then we'll have the cleaning break. And Sean Bailey, who is 12th climber on the men's side, so the cadence of the men slightly quicker. We'll probably have the cleaning break. It's nice if the cleaning breaks are offset, so the wall is never completely empty of climbers. Will saying, interestingly enough, the lower section on the men's route, not super hard, but the holds aren't in cut, so if your feet came off, you could actually lose it there. So he said you've got to keep the tension up, and that takes a bit of energy, which then costs you later on.
Yeah, I think this is one of the exact examples of what he was talking about there. Just smearing on the right-hand side, loads of side pulls employed by the route sets, which is a really good way of making sure that people don't rest and got to keep the momentum all the way through the route. One thing that really played into Will's hands there is the speed that he climbs. Actually leading the way at the moment. A score of 37 plus, and his pace is really good. And Sean Bailey really struggled with the quick draws there.
Yeah, I think actually just looking where he was and how close he is to the ground, probably quite lucky for Sean Bailey that he got the clip a split second before he fell off. The ground not a million miles away at that stage due to the angle of the wall, but yes, had to lose Sean Bailey, World Cup medalist of course in boulder, even though people think of him more as a lead climber. Actually stayed with me in Innsbruck once, Sean Bailey, the only person who's ever slept on my couch who's climbed biography at Seyouz, I'm pretty sure, unless you've secretly got it done at some stage, Mike, and just modestly not told me about it.
Yeah, that is my dream route actually, if I were to ever quit work completely, have a different body, go on a diet,
be
train
15
a lot.
years younger.
Yeah, that is my absolute dream line. I've been to Seyouz many times though, really enjoyed the lines there. More in the 8s department than the 9s though, unfortunately.
I think I could probably get it done on a Jumar, just be... If I actually had to hold the holds, I'd struggle. Christine Schranz now just getting onto the steep section. She's been relatively slow up to this point. Was it conserving energy, or was it taking a bit of figuring out? I hope it was conserving energy, and she's now got a bit of juice left to fight this tricky middle section. Move after move. It's kind of a frustrating section to climb because you're doing a lot of moves and you're not actually going that far. A lot of swapping hands around, swapping feet around, maintaining body position. You look down and think, I've only gone 2 meters. Pops up with a left hand. Looking pretty smooth here, Christine Schranz. Haven't seen it in every World Cup over the past couple of seasons. She looks really capable every time she does turn up. Now she's heading up for hold 32, which early on looked like it might be one of the cruxes. Still, interestingly, nobody, since those 3 climbers who fell on it very early on, 3 out of the first 4 climbers, nobody's fallen on that since. That is hold 32. And there's a pretty horrific case of commentator's curse just as she goes for the awkward clip for Christine Schranz.
So she was looking really steady. She's obviously like a steady away kind of paced climber, just kind of taking it all, just one move really slowly, lots of rest. But ultimately at that stage, unfortunately, you've got to be going quick just due to how steep it is.
Jongwon Chon now gets underway. Always fun to see him on a lead route, Jongwon Chon. Vastly successful boulder, a 2-time overall season champion. Picked up a podium in Vale over a month ago already. Very smooth so far. He's known for being extraordinarily powerful. So each individual move you would suspect will not feel too hard to Jeongwon Chon. The tricky bit, as ever on a lead route, is stringing them together.
Interesting, really interesting to see what sort of shape he's in as one of the combined athletes. See, this is a real test of endurance, so it would be really good insight as to where he's at. And if that's anything to go by, he's not quite where he needs to be, unfortunately for Chon.
That was interesting from Jeongwon Chon. Didn't look too tired, but I have to say now I've just turned over my shoulder to look. He's lowering down, and he looks absolutely knackered, so it must have kicked in pretty quickly. Catch your posh now. Yeah, pulling on. One more climber after her before the cleaning break on the women's side, Shauna Coxey. The men's side, that is now 13 climbers been through, so halfway through on the men's semi-final. Two of our route setters, led this week by Flo Monig, are about to pull on and give the men's route a scrub. Really, really like these routes from what we've seen so far. Same again in the final would be very nice, please. So catch your posh. This is a bit of a tricky move. It hasn't actually stopped anyone yet, but these moves around this ball are slightly awkward. Relieved to see they haven't caused people too many problems. I thought when the route setters were talking through the route, I thought this move, or this section of move, might cause problems, but the climbers have absolutely cruised through it.
This set of volumes is kind of new to the market as well, so it's first time out really last week in Villa, so climbers slowly becoming more familiar with the shapes and the kind of texture of these holds.
It's a good way to level the playing field, getting new volumes. Because some climbers, when volumes have been out for a few years, some climbers will know them better than others. So I like it when we get completely new holds that nobody knows.
Interestingly, for the Olympics, the massive holds pool is going to be announced relatively soon by the IFSC as to which brands and which models within those brands, the ranges that are going to come out that are going to be available to the route sets for the Olympics. So soon enough we'll know which ones are going to be in that selection. It's going to be a huge amount, and those gyms and the teams can actually go and get those holds, get them on the wall, and make sure that the athletes prepare the best they possibly can do ready for the Olympics. At the moment that list hasn't been announced though, so it's all hush hush.
Amazing to think that by the time we go to Tokyo, the Olympics will be less than a year away. We'll be visiting the venue, hopefully.
Yeah, it'd be good to see progress. Not sure if the climb wall's been built yet. Saw the stadium being built just on the news the other day. The excitement for the rings builds.
Katja Posch is looking smooth here. You can just see her face, bit of a grimace. She is clearly beginning to feel the pump, but still moving relatively steadily. Now you can see her really biting her bottom lip, having to work hard here. Here comes that big move up to hole 32. Biceps exploding as you hold yourself pinned underneath that big black volume.
It's a really nice move, that nice little unravel where you have to have the right hand on the underside of the volume, no hold there, just wrapping the underside of the volume and popping up to that jug with the left hand with the really wide left foot. Really cool move.
So you can see there, route setters giving the men's route a clean. They'll only need to clean it to just below the head wall because nobody yet in the first 13 climbers has been up to that head wall. Will Bosey leading the way, 37 plus with only 13 climbers to go. I think Will might have done enough. We shall see. It's a very strong 13 climbers, but given how pumpy the route is, and when you look at some of the names there that couldn't get to 37 plus, Will may well have secured himself a place in the final. But as I say, very, very strong second half of this men's semi-final still to come.
I would say, just looking at the men's competition, lots of traditional, really good resistance climbers still to come. So Will, yeah, he's put in a really good battle there, but he may end up right on the outside or on the cusp of finals. Let's see. Don't want to make too many early predictions, but this is the route where mistakes don't really come from kind of a jump or some sort of likely slip. It's more about just beating the pump to the top of the wall. And let's see if Shauna Coxey can do that. Been training a lot on the routes over the last couple of months. Only did a couple of Boulder World Cups. Was out in Villars last week.
At the start of our broadcast, we showed you the qualification routes from yesterday when I chatted to Shauna, and she said she was so pumped. She went backstage and she must have looked pretty destroyed, because a few people went up to her and asked if she was all right. And I did say to her, "Wow, when when people think you might be having a heart attack, you were pretty pumped." And she laughed, but yeah, she definitely gave the routes absolutely everything yesterday.
Well, it's interesting. Also, the recovery. She's obviously had 24 hours, a bit less to recover for this semi-final round. Well, sometimes when you get boxed that badly, the recovery can take quite some time, and that's also dependent on what your warm-up was like and everything else. So just focusing on this section at the bottom here, we've seen Eloise Dumont use the same sequence here as Shauna. We've seen most of the other female athletes hold that sort of screw-on volume on top of the round volume with their left and roll over the right. Shauna and Eloise Dumont just matching it and going up to the screw-ons on top, skipping one hold. Interesting to see slightly different methods developing just at the bottom of the wall, depending on how they favour that volume sequence. Shauna Cox is definitely one of those athletes who's got eyes on the Olympics, pretty much 100%. Just did a couple of Boulder World Cups, got the ranking points that she needed. Chances are if she gets a good result here, we won't see her for the rest of the lead season. Get those points in the bag, get the speed done, and just focus on what you need to do at the biggest event of them all.
She is definitely a woman with a plan. She has, as you say, got her eyes firmly fixed on the Olympics.
Well, I think that's for two reasons. One is do what you need to do and then just purely train rather than compete, because competing can really sap your body. And she's had a decent string of injuries in the last couple of years, so she's got to be careful. Climb in the most controlled way possible, train in the most controlled way possible with all of your team around you, and compete as much as you need to rather than as much as you possibly might want to.
So all eyes on Shauna Coxey now. The men's route currently being cleaned. I'm just looking up at how progress is going. Another 5 minutes or so, that should be done, and then we'll have the cleaning break on the women's route. So as I say, Shauna Coxey finds herself alone on the wall, 13th climber on the women's side. Victoria Meshkova will be the 14th climber out after the cleaning break, and Philipp Martin of Germany will be the 14th climber on the men's route when that is done with being cleaned. So let's focus on Shauna for now. Had to pop out to the right with her vast success down the years in bouldering. Dynamic moves not really causing her too many problems. Oh, and it was the cross through up towards hole 29 where we lost her, and that's not going to be enough for Shauna, sadly. Won't be enough for a place as it stands right now in the top 8, let alone in the top 8 for the final. So that is disappointing for Shauna. She didn't look especially tired.
I think that's just pure power endurance there, unfortunately, unless there was something else going on, which there could well have been. She is one climber short of the cleaning breaks. You could argue that maybe there's something going on there, but realistically, I think she just looked a bit pumped out.
Yeah, it doesn't look particularly happy with that one. Shauna Coxey heads off stage in Chamonix. So the women's route now will get a bit of a clean. That is the scene here, the mountains of the Aiguille Rouge behind. That is the Place du Mont Blanc. There was barely any crowd when things got underway at 10, and suddenly after about 15 minutes of this semi-final I looked over and it was absolutely packed, which is what we like to see. I was wondering if the people of Chamonix were going to let us down. Not a bit of it.
Yeah, I think they might have a few big nights last night, Friday night in Chamonix. They scraped themselves out of bed.
Couldn't possibly speculate.
Yeah, enjoying some beautiful weather.
Yeah, there's the peak behind us, the Brevant, a very famous peak. And we just got a very brief look from above at the Place du Mont Blanc. It really is a fabulous place to watch climbing. As we look at the wall there, over to the right, as you look at that view, is Mont Blanc, the Mont Blanc summit itself. Behind are the needles of Chamonix, the aiguille. The sun is shining. The atmosphere always absolutely wonderful. It's and they've got a good show to watch this time. Molly Thompson-Smith currently leading the way. It's Great Britain at the top of the standings on both sides, 42 plus for her. And as I say, we take 8 climbers through, but at this stage, nobody yet guaranteed their place in the final. But On the whole, Mike, it's been a very entertaining semi-final, and I think the kind of routes most people enjoy watching.
Yeah, I hope so. Obviously, we hope to see, especially on the women's side, people getting a bit higher. I think we've got a lot of talent still to come, though, so it's very likely that we are going to see, on both the left and the right route, men's and women's, going to see climbers pushing towards the top of the wall. Janja Garnbret, she rarely fails us for a top, we'll see, and lots of very strong climbers. Adam Ondra still to come, the last climber out in the men's competition, topped both of the routes yesterday, but really good power endurance routes, lots of side pulls, kind of more of a traditional style that we keep saying, and yeah, you can see it there. Good hot conditions for the crowd, but nice and cool for the climbers, kind of the actual perfect scene here, ready for a good end to the second half of the semi-finals routes.
Yeah, there is the view behind the wall, doesn't get much better than that. And as you luxuriate in the sun, watching Adam Ondra and Janja Garnbret climb, you can also spare a thought for the poor folk shivering on the summit of Mont Blanc a couple of miles above you. Lovely day here in Chamonix. It doesn't really get a lot better than this. As I mentioned earlier, Briançon next. Another of the absolutely classic IFSC venues. Last year we moved to a new venue, which we're going to again this year. We were on the western edge of town in the quite distinctive venue between the two very old buildings. And but now we're in the Parc des Sports. It's a much bigger venue. We're able to get a much bigger crowd in.
Well, let's not forget as well the Paraclimbing World Championships in Briançon, just starting in a couple of days' time. Huge starting list there. It's absolutely brilliant to see the paraclimbing after the slight disappointment that they didn't get through and compete alongside the able-bodied athletes in the World Championships in Tokyo this year, but they will be out in what is a spectacular venue in Briançon, so we're really looking forward to that one next week as well.
Yeah, it's going to be great actually, because normally you've got quite a long wait between World Cups, but this week, Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, you can join us live. I think it's from 8 p.m. both nights. Do check on the IFSC website that I've got my timings right. I think it's from 8 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday nights. We've got a huge amount of paraclimbing coming up for you. And it is the Paraclimbing World Championships in Briançon, so make sure you join us Tuesday and Wednesday evenings. And then, of course, Briançon, no speed in Briançon, it's lead only. We've got the lead semi-finals, qualifiers and semi-finals on Friday, and then we've got the finals on Saturday evening. So lots of action coming up. And we're underway again on the men's route. Philipp Martin of Germany is underway. Ellen Janico, who we mentioned earlier on as a former competitor turned route setter, is cleaning the women's route.
Always such a brutal task for the route setters. They're already so tired after a whole week's worth of route setting. Really late night last night, super early morning, and then they have to try and haul themselves back up the routes that they've been up so many times. Just kind of brush the holds, but they are the best people to do the job. They know what needs to be done. It's a service that's very well received.
Yeah, 14th is really a much better position to climb than 13th. I mean, you can't possibly calculate that in your qualifying, but it is one of those little lucky breaks where if you can just start immediately after the cleaning break, it does make a big difference. Yeah, Ellen Janico actually just freeing some of the moves in the background there.
So she's obviously got something left in the tank.
Philipp Martin got a real fight in his hands already, it would seem. These moves don't get you tired very, very quickly, especially this kind of cross-through move, where you've suddenly got to drop quite dynamically onto your left arm. As I say, we're awaiting Victoria Meshkova on the women's route when Ellen Janico is done with her work. Oh, we lose him. It looked like perhaps a dry fire.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing there. I think he really did start to breathe really hard all of a sudden, but yeah, just some sort of slip, matching that side pull before moving up left.
Alberto Jimenez Lopez will be the next climber on the men's route. Yeah, Philipp Martin, that was a shame for him.
He had really good pace through the bottom section of the wall. He was kind of climbing really fast, really confidently. Just fired off that side pull, but that is where the route really starts to kick in. That's where we're seeing the big separation at the moment. And as more and more climbers fall off, Will Bosey's score is looking better and better.
Yeah, he was very honest, Will, when he borrowed your headset and said, yeah, he's nervous. Can't help but be nervous. He wants to climb in front of a packed Chamonix crowd. And I have to say, 14 climbers gone, he's still leading the standings. It's certainly not a done deal by any means, but if I had to bet, I would say Will's probably just about found himself a place in the final. Here goes Alberto, 15th climber on the men's route, 15th of 26. Kokoro Fuji will be next out after him, and then Sascha Layman, who picked up his first ever World Cup win last week in his home country in Villars. And just to let you know, Ellen Janico has been lowered off the women's route, so I believe we should be ready to get going in just a second over there.
17 years old, he's still youth, junior, first year or second, I don't know.
Very strong lineups still to come on both sides. Just to let you know, I'm looking down our start list. After Victoria Meshkova on the women's side, we'll have Valentina Aguado of Argentina. Interesting to see how she gets on. A real genuine all-rounder. Then Mia Krampel, Natsuki Tani, Julia Shanodi, Jessie Pilch, Luchka Rakovic, Ashima Shiraeshi, Akio Noguchi, Yutong Jang, Ai Mori, Chaehyun Seo, and finally Yanya Garnbrett. So very interesting second half of the women's semi-final coming up. Ditto on the men's side. Alberto's certainly a man capable of making the finals. Really good day yesterday in the qualifiers. It was a couple of moves on from here that we lost Philip Martin.
Come on, if you're from Russia, please welcome Victoria. Meshkovia, alors la Russie, c'est souvent.
This is the move that we lost Martin, just matching this hold. Martin went for the undermatch, so he's just gone conventionally one hand on top of the other. Alberto flowing really nicely through this bit.
Yeah, it looked like he might have a little fumble with that clip, but he got it done second go. And he looks tired, but he doesn't look super tired. Looks like he's got a bit of energy left, but it will disappear so quickly.
Yeah, as soon as you start to see his right foot just smearing on top of that hold, as soon as you're starting standing right on the top of bad footholds like that, all of a sudden the weight going through the arms just multiplies massively. That really starts to come and hurt you.
Victoria Mishkova now of Russia, we mentioned her. She's now started climbing on the women's route down at the bottom right of your screen. Let's stick with Alberto for now because he is looking super strong through here. How long before the surely inevitable severe pump kicks in?
Yeah, this is the big cut loose move that we've seen. Will Bosey did this really nicely. Sean McColl took a bit of quite a wild cut. Let's see. There's the big lock on the left arm. Super cool move.
So much power required to stop the swing like that. Basically locked off on one arm, one already pumped arm. And are we about to see a new high point here? I think we are.
That's hold 37 that he's got in his left hand. Will Bosey up there with 37 plus. Does get the cross and secures the new high point.
So this is all uncharted terrain for us in this men's semi-final. You can see the pump really kicking in, but every move he gets improves his score a bit more, and that is a new high point. That'll be a 42 plus, or I think that'll be a 42 plus. I don't think they'll give him that hold he went for. That was hold 43. Either way, new high point. Will Bosey shifts down to second. Alberto is now in first. Really strong performance from him. I was surprised how untired he looked until quite late on.
Yeah, we've been speculating just for fun really as to if we're going to see tops, if so how many. Going by that, I hope the route setters have packed in a couple of hard moves at the top there because there's a lot of strong climbers still to come. Alberto Yunus Lopez has gone right into the head wall there, 43. Top move is 48, so just 5 moves left to separate a whole bunch of climbers if they get that far. Let's focus back on the women's competition though. Victoria Meshkova.
Yeah, Russia's Victoria Meshkova. First Russian we've seen so far. They had a good day in the speed climbing yesterday, don't they always? Already been to Russia, of course, this year. We had our second bouldering World Cup in Moscow. They know how to put on a good event, the Russians, that's for sure.
We saw Shauna falling on this next section as well. Martine there from Victoria. It's obviously a really hard move going out to that side pool. We saw Shauna jumping out to it. She's ended up going a bit more statically, but there's a really big fight on the hands just around that section, and we do lose her. And as we said in the men's competition, as more people come out, Will Bosey's scores looking good. As more females fall off in that lower section, Molly Thompson-Smith from Great Britain up there at the top at the moment, 42 plus, is looking really solid as well.
Yeah, she certainly is. Here goes Kokoro Fuji.
Kokoro in the finals last week actually was one of the many climbers to get right at the top of the wall, but ended up scoring 9, I think it was, because he used a bolt lower down. He stood on the bolt by accident. Judges deemed that he actually used it, so penalised unfortunately for him. Those are the rules. Accidentally just pasted his foot across the wall and it happened to land on a bolt.
So Kokoro, interesting to see how he gets on. Remember, each country can only take 2 climbers to the Olympics. For Team Japan, you suspect Tomoe Narasaki would probably be one of their 2, but who would join him? Could it be Kokoro? They've certainly got plenty of options. He could do with a few good results in the lead, that's for sure. He got a good one last week in Villars. Oh, and stabs the right foot out. That's a powerful way of doing that move, to suddenly put your feet out to the side instead of underneath you.
Yeah, from that angle you could see he was really asking the questions of himself, what method to use there. And like I said, he went for the wide foot really early. He just uses that match using the undercut with his left arm before moving up. Kind of quite similar move, these 2 undercut side paw moves. Again, he's battling quite hard through this section. We've seen that pretty consistently through this round.
Now he's able to relax slightly. Certainly not the most efficient way through those moves, but he's still going. Valentina Aguado just got underway on the women's route.
Kokoro just starting to wobble a little bit at the bottom there. You can see the legs shaking just a tiny bit. Big power scream and he is off. Maybe that big chuck out with his foot early on in the route come back to haunt him a little bit there. One thing about this route, seeing climbers getting so pumped, is I think it's the variety of hand positions really. It's not just flat crimping, it's side pulls, edges, gastons, sort of all the muscle groups getting pumped in all different areas of the arm and the shoulders. It's really sapping the climbers quite quickly.
Valentina Aguado now, she got really close to a couple of bouldering semi-finals. She was in 21st, 22nd, had a really, felt like an unlucky bouldering season. And I think a lot of neutrals looking on would love to see a big result from here in Chamonix. To be honest, after her qualifying yesterday, it's already been a big result, but just how big a result can it be? So will she take a bit of a pause here before launching up? Sascha Layman will be next out. World Cup winner Sascha Layman next on the men's route. Valentina Aguado now gets underway on this complicated, crimpy, pumpy section of the women's route, down and right of the huge red feature that dominates the Chamonix wall. There's Sascha Layman, bottom right of your screen.
It's a slightly strange little hand section there at the hold that she's got with her left hand. Seems a little bit hard for the climbers to read that section. They all seem to get a little bit confused and end up matching one of the bad holds. See, she's really fighting here. It's possibly the hardest move on the route, just coming up next, out to the right. That move right there.
That's disappointing for Valentina. I think there was a bit of indecision there about just which method to use. It's so hard when you can feel the pump coming. You're already tired from the lower section. You've got to make decisions, and if you get them wrong, it's very hard to correct them. So what can Sascha do here?
et la vitesse. Ils sont dingues, ils sont compétents et ça va être monstrueux.
Must be absolutely brimming with confidence after last week. It always seemed that he had the raw horsepower, but he knew how to climb, didn't necessarily know how to compete. They're two very different things, but he's very clear that he's now got both those skills.
It's really interesting when you are a World Cup winner, especially just from a few days ago. There's an amazing amount of confidence you get, but also the amount of pressure that goes along with it. You're always expected to do well. You're expected to get into finals, at least.
Well, yeah, now every time you walk out, every venue MC will say, "Here comes World Cup winner Sascha Layman." So even people in the crowd who aren't climbing fans suddenly know that you're a serious contender, and he's managed to fluff that clip. He needs to get it right. Gets it that time. You could just see his hands shaking slightly. He's having to work so hard. The pump really kicked in now for Sascha Layman. There's an opportunity a bit further up on that coffin-shaped volume to maybe take something of a rest.
The way this route's panning out, Charlie, I think Sascha could be in quite a bit of trouble here unless he's got some incredible amount of resistance to the pump. We'll see if he can keep fighting and how much he can keep going, because he had a real struggle with that quick draw. I've seen lots of people struggling with these long draws here. The necessary long quick draws, they've got to be there. It just seems these routes are just so hard, it's hard to take a hand off, and Sascha Layman's got a big fight on his hands here. Could be an early upset here.
Yeah, certainly does. This is where I meant if he could get himself solid there, there's the potential for a rest. Sascha Layman will be really disappointed with that after last week's excellent performance, but he does have a chance to make amends in just 7 days' time in Briançon. You can see frustration reigning there. So Mia Krampel of Slovenia, second Slovenian woman on the wall after Viktor Lukan earlier on, gets underway. One of the most heroic performances surely in IFSC history from her in the Munich final. What was that? Well, almost 2 months ago. How did that happen? Yeah, quite extraordinary.
Yeah, we were just mentioning it a little bit last week as well, just how she's seemingly gone through what was an epic battle, and everyone's wondering, oh, she shouldn't carry on. She's clearly got a bad injury, but she obviously knew exactly what she was doing, and she's managed to scrape through that experience and come back fighting, because, yeah, she made really, really good competition last week, and no strapping or anything on the knees, so seemingly 100% fit.
I don't recall ever seeing anything quite like that, actually, in Munich. Breathtaking stuff from Mia Krampel. I was sure she couldn't have continued. I remember saying it at the time, but not only did she continue, she found her way onto the podium, so quite extraordinary stuff.
Let's have a look at this next sequence then. So this is the bit where we're starting to see a little bit of confusion. Valentino Guardo started to get a bit pumped here, so it looks like the route setters have set it so you go up left hand where she's got the left hand, and then going again with the right hand, or go up to where she has your left hand with the right hand and cross through. So we've seen a number of climbers having to match this next hold where she currently has her right. Looks like she's going to go again as the route setters intended, so good route reading there from Mia Krampel.
And Molly Thompson-Smith still leading the way on the women's side, 42 plus. Right now 31 plus will get you into the top 8. It won't be enough by the end of the semi-final. Look at the scores, Viktor Lukan 40 plus, may just be enough, we'll see. Certainly anyone that punches onto the head wall, I think on either the men's or the women's side, will probably secure themselves a place in the final from what we've seen. Nobody yet really got onto the head wall on either side. Route setters, I think, will be pretty happy with their work. I think they'll feel they got the level pretty right, actually.
Yeah, we just hope that there's separation going into the final. Last week, semi-finals was a three-way tie going into the final in the men's competition. Kind of like to avoid that this week.
Yannick Floe just got underway, bottom right of the screen, Team Germany. They had a really good day in the qualifiers yesterday, Germany, particularly on the men's side. Slightly less so on the women's, but yeah, Yannick Floe latest to try his luck.
Mia Krampel just having a look at her different foot options here. There is a good rest there if she can find it, between a big jug for her right foot and a jug out on the left for her left hand. See how the chalk bag and her hair is hanging off her back. See how steep that section of wall is. Better angle there. So
this is where we lost Sascha Layman on the men's route, Yannick Floe. I'd struggle to call it a rest. There's a pause there. Chooses not to take it at all, chooses instead just to keep on fighting, and both climbers now really got a battle on their hands. Mia Krampel over on the right.
Yeah, that was around hold 42.
Yeah, I think that'll put her into second place. We'll see how the judges saw it, and Yannick Floey, he'd looked tired for a couple of moves there.
Yeah, completely powered out. He knew what he wanted to do. He did the move in his head, but the arms didn't follow, unfortunately. Breathing hard, a real athletic performance required on these routes.
Domin Skoffic will be next out on the men's side. What can he do? Fourth place, last time in Villars.
Yeah, yesterday, just hearing him as he came off the wall, just walked past us, and just saying that was so hard. He had to put in a real battle on the qualifying route, so that's really good.
So the wall empty very briefly. Natsuki Tani will be next out for the women, 17th climber. She'll be followed by Julia Chanardi, who's a consistent finalist in 2 disciplines. Not many of them about.
Yeah, really good to see. Not only is she consistent in 2 disciplines, but she's consistent week in, week out as well. It's not like she just does a bit of bouldering, then has a big break, and then scrapes in the lead at the end. She's just always there and always performing well. Natsuki Tani, though, one of 4 climbers born in 2003, about to come out on the wall. The youngsters are descending on this competition here in Chamonix, in the women's competition, but the old guard, if you could call them old, Domin Skoffic, alongside Jakob Schumacher, Romain de Grange. I think you could put Romain in the...
Yeah, you could put Romain in the Grange.
Born in 1982, he's way up there compared to those in 2003, like we're seeing from Natsuki Tani.
Yeah, he's not really a fine wine where he gets better by the year. He's like a fine whiskey. He gets better by the decade, Romain de Grange. He won the overall title age 35. Absolutely, so it looked really good yesterday. We did the interview with him that was on our qualifying highlights, and he was like a kid at Christmas when he saw that the route was crimpy for the first men's qualifying route.
Yeah, I liked his phrase, small crimps but good crimps.
Yeah, nobody else would have classed them as holds.
Natsuki Tani was in the finals last week. She was one of the climbers, one of 7 to all fall on that top headwall move. This route should suit her style. She didn't really seem to have too many troubles up to that move in the finals, so we could see her have a bit of a battle here.
Domin underway, bottom right of your screen. Here he is, a bit closer to the camera. Yeah, interesting to see how he gets on. This is one of the key sequences. We've seen people slightly misread this. I think it was Kokoro Fuji stabbed his feet out to the right, cost himself bags of energy. But Domin much smoother through there. One notable absentee, by the way, from this semi-final is Kokoro's compatriot Tomoe Narasaki. Did not have a good day at all in the qualifiers after an excellent Villars. So that's one less big name for people to worry about.
A bit of trouble here for Domin.
Domin really got himself tied up after having seemingly read the bottom section of the route pretty well.
Huge mistake there from Domin. Someone with so much experience, he had that foot matching on the right-hand side on the big volumes, and all of a sudden really struggled to reverse that move. And it's a massive upset for Domin Skoffic. They're not going to be going through to the finals. Falls off really low, down around hole 26. It's 42 plus up there at the moment. Alberto from Spain, who's leading the way just behind Will Bosey, 37 plus. Really getting to the stage where we're going to know our finalists already here. It's Natsuki Tani for now, though, seemingly just cruising through this earlier section. No problems with that really hard move out to the right.
Well, that was a big shock from Domin Skoffic. Made his way off the stage, looking reasonably unimpressed.
I have to say, this route really, in the men's and the women's side, it absolutely punishes you if you make the slightest mistake. Dumont just literally had a slightly wrong foot sequence, but the handholds and the hand movements are so brutal that you can't reverse, and there's no way out.
Lui, ça fait vraiment plaisir de le retrouver ici en demi-finale de difficulté parce que c'est un vrai bloqueur. C'est pas un jeune grimpeur. Il était là depuis déjà une dizaine d'années au très haut niveau.
Suki Tani is a bit too close up to tell exactly where she is. Now you get a bit of a better view. This section of the route becoming increasingly familiar as the semi-final progresses.
Yeah, she just quickly checked over her shoulder there to see the time. She's been pretty slow up to this point. Can't actually see from our position what the time is, but I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue considering 42 plus is not that far above her, and that is the current high point that gets you through to the finals.
Yeah, frustratingly enough, we can't actually see the clock from our position, and we don't put it on the screen because it would get a bit confusing as we cut between the men and the women. But yeah, she must be slightly pushed for time after not going particularly quickly.
This is 42 at the moment then on that right hand edge of the volume. Let's see if we can see a new high point from Natsuki here. She's looking really solid at the moment, actually taking a moment to chalk and rest where the high point Molly Thompson-Smith actually fell.
Yeah, so it was going up for this hole, if memory serves me rightly, for Molly Thompson-Smith.
Yeah, Natsuki Tani does go up. There's a small screw-on jib attached to the top of that. She gets it nicely with her left hand. She will just sort of piano mitt, shuffle across that sloper before trying to rock her way onto this big volume.
Needs to get this clip done, especially with the rope in a slightly awkward position behind her right leg. Every move now is pushing this high point higher and higher from Natsuki Tani. She's crossed through, that's around hole 46, 47. Could we see someone onto hold 50, which is over on that black volume? I have to say, she looks like she's got plenty of energy left. No clear signs of fatigue, no shaking. The elbows aren't really out.
Yeah, when I was reading it from the ground, that undercut that she had with the right hand looked desperately bad, but she managed to drill her thumb into the bolt hole and get something out of that, and she's still looking relatively fresh here, Natsuki.
She is. I think it may be was that a bit of resistance in the B layer and rope drag? I don't think there'll be any rope drag. She certainly struggled to get the slack she needed to make that clip, but either way, she is motoring again up to hole 51.
She's gone up with her right hand there. She does actually get another match here. She's a very, very small climber, so it's just about to shuffle around on these holes is quite handy for her. So she needs to go again here, or will she get another match? Does try and go again, but just fails in the height, but surely through to the finals again there for Natsuki Tani.
You'd imagine so. That's a 52 plus by my reckoning for her. That's pushed the high point miles out. It's 10 moves further than Molly Thompson-Smith.
Whilst all of that was going on, Martin Stranick was on the wall as well. He came down just before that sort of nice little cut loose move out on the left, where we saw Sean Mccoll fall.
Would have been good to see Martin Stranick. I mean, I have to say, when you meet him, he doesn't immediately strike you as a lead climber. He's a huge guy. You can see him there. Looks built for bouldering, not for lead. But yeah, it looks like he's had a pretty good go. We'll wait for his score to flash up.
Avec cette sacrée athlète japonaise, il y en aura d'autres. Il y a une coréenne et encore une autre japonaise. Et maintenant, les moments sont importants. Elle a fait une finale la semaine dernière. On va accueillir aussi notre française, 2 podiums à l'international. Et on accueille le capitaine de l'équipe italienne,
Stefano Ghisolfi will be next out. I think with that, just having a look, he's underneath the wall. Interesting to see the backstage very briefly. Yeah, Stefano getting ready to go. Disappointing result for him last week in Villars, didn't make the final. Julia Chanaudy made the final, and she's gunning for another one here in Chamonix. First home World Cup for her for this season. And no home World Cups for Stefano this year. We're going to Arco, but it's for the Youth World Championship.
Yeah, his hometown. I think he'll be sad not to be able to compete on the Great Walls there in Arco. No doubt he'll be hanging out with an ice cream after the World Championships. So enjoy the massive amount of talent that's always on show at the Youth World Championships.
Doubly impressive to be such a good climber when you live in Arco. I think if I lived in Arco, I'd look like a beach whale within about a month, to be honest, with the gelato and the pizza and the cappuccino. Yeah, not a bad place to live for old Stefano. Thoroughly enjoying the move down. They moved down from Turin a couple of years ago. Do not exaggerate to say you've got a lifetime's worth of outdoor climbing on your doorstep. And he certainly seems to enjoy it.
Stefano,
big
fall. He just jumped with full confidence, really low down. I think that's hold 15.
That's going to be the lowest score yet in the men's semi-final. Stefano Ghisolfi, second week running, fluffs his lines in the semi-final. Last year's winner here in Chamonix, Stefano Ghisolfi, is out. He's probably going to finish his semi-final in 26th place.
Finals place is already being decided here with such big names dropping all over the place. I was just saying earlier, surely this is a route you don't actually make mistakes on. It's just about beating the pump. Stefano Ghisolfi's made a mistake at the bottom of the wall.
Right, so there's 5 climbers still to go. That means that Alberto, Gines Lopez, Will Bosie and Sean Mccoll are guaranteed their places in the final this evening. Oh, Stefano in the place where he won last year's first European victory. His first victory outside China was here in Chamonix last year, and he will not make it through to the final. So Will Bosie, I'm looking around, see if I can see him now, was happy to admit he'd had a very nervous wait. Well, it can end now. He will be in the final here in Chamonix. Always seems to go well in the shadow of Mont Blanc, and same again here. What can Julia Chanaudy do? She has gone from a climber who sometimes makes finals to a climber we expect to see in the finals, both in bouldering and lead.
Après, il y aura Jacob Schubert, Romain Desgranges, Alexander Mccoll, Adam Andral, les 4 meilleurs grimpeurs du monde. Il manquait que Ghisolfi.
Alors lui, c'est un vrai bloqueur, puisque c'est le champion du monde de bloc 2018.
Julia Chanaudy looking a little bit tired through this section, which is not ideal, but that does seem to have it all together at the moment. That's hold just lost my numbers, 32,
yeah.
So I was about to say 23, but got my numbers around the wrong way. Julia Chanaudy just shaking off a little bit of pump there. Just got to get a couple of good, clean, quick draws clipped here, and does struggle again. Seems to be a bit of a theme here this week. Just the positions that the route says have put the climbs in. There's nothing wrong with the routes, it's just the nature of the style of the overhangs here. Just seems to be a bit of a struggle. Struggles again twice here. This is a bit of a problem here. I did say that any mistakes on these routes, it really leads you into a bit of trouble quite quickly.
Just to let you know, there are still 8 climbers to come after Julia Chanaudy, so no matter what happens, she's not guaranteed a place in the final, and I don't think that's going to be enough. So Kai Harada, world bouldering champion from Innsbruck last year, it's on the wall, on the lead wall. The men's semi-final almost certainly going to finish before the women's. Only 5 men left, 8 women still to come.
We saw this a little bit last week actually in the men's semi-final. Climbers coming later on and around all of a sudden started struggling in certain sections.
We're going to have a quick look at Stefano Ghisolfi quickly while Kai Harada's so low down. Let's have a look. This was Stefano. What happens here?
Oh, Charlie, I have to say, he just jumped for an undercut sideball with full confidence. And you can see as soon as he hit the right hand, his hand just dragged straight down the hold. It's obviously not in-cut enough just to jump to it like that. It was slightly more undercut than it was side pull. If it was kind of a bit more just a kind of flat side pull, he might have had a chance. But
really strange one as well, because there's a nice foothold out right. You can just jerk your foot on, step out. Hey, easy for me to say, but the other climbers have managed it. There's no need to jump there.
I think he was brimming with confidence. I think he won here last year. Maybe he was just a bit too relaxed at the bottom of the wall. Just a basic error.
So Kai Harada now trying his luck. Just trying to figure out exactly where the cutoff will be actually for the men. As I said, 3 climbers already guaranteed this place. So Sean Mccoll in 36, Martin Stranek actually, who we didn't actually see because we were focused on the women's route, ended up with a 35 plus. So if you can get a 36, you're going to get through. And he doesn't know it right now, but Kai Harada's very close to that. It's those holds right at the top of the next volume over to his left, so it's not clear from our drawing. I think it's the right hand of those two holds that are right together at the end of the next volume. The right hand of those two is hole 36. If he can secure that, he'll have done enough for the final.
Let's see how he gets on with this move.
Oh, he does so well with that hard lock off. Will Bosu was the first to really nail that move.
Yeah, that's the move of the qualifier so far, but that is hold 36.
So that'll be enough for Kai.
Let's see how high he can go now. Will he get a new high point, 42 plus, up in the head wall?
Looks like he's suddenly got a little bit pumped, Kai, kind of pushing the shoulder and the elbow outwards. Trying to find a slightly different position, just relieve the pump slightly, but he's done enough for the final. He will be in.
He's actually managed to manufacture a bit of a rest here as well, with a left heel tucked in there. Oh, and still falls. He was obviously pretty gassed. He just seemed to go from kind of 0 pump to 100% pump in one move there. I'm sure his coaches down the front should hopefully give him the nod though. We got to focus on world champion Jessie Pills, looking to do something this week after really struggling last week.
Yeah, she needs to find her groove again in league climbing. Jessie Pilz had a bouldering season that I'm sure was even better than she was hoping for, but she needs to get her lead head back on this season. She won here in Chamonix last year in 2018.
Yeah, a little interview I did with her last week. She was just saying that she does feel the pressure actually being world champion. There's this kind of added load on her shoulders, but she tries not to think about it too much, just focuses on trying to get podiums for finals and then podiums. That's her aim this year.
Hard to believe her confidence didn't take a slight knock in Villars, and yesterday did enough to get comfortably into the top half of the semi-finals, but certainly didn't look at her best qualifying yesterday. Did well on one of the routes, less so on the other. So, yeah, still some question marks over Jessie Pilz in this lead season, and she could do with answering them here in Chamonix.
Let's see how she gets on with this nice little under-wrap move with the right hand before popping up. Seemingly looking pretty solid at the moment, but having to work for it.
All Austria are on the wall right now, by the way. Jakob Schubert is just pulling on right now. He's got underway.
Yeah,
there he is.
That's the clip that Julia Chanaldi really struggled with. Jessie gets it first time. Really good route reading from her.
Yeah, Julia Chanaldi down in 6th place. I'm pretty sure that won't be enough. Nobody guaranteed a place yet in the women's final. They will be once Jessie's climbed, because there'll only be 7 people left to come. Jakob Schubert, another man like Stefano, with a bad start to his lead season. Didn't make the final. Yes. Already won a Boulder World Cup this season, Jakob. Jessie looking a lot more solid this week than she did last week. But she'll have to set a new high point if she wants to guarantee herself a place in the final. So this will be enough for second right now. She's just surpassed Molly Thompson-Smith's score.
She's looking pretty good here, Jessie, actually. She goes up to that big slope, but there is a screw-on addition up there as well. We saw Natsuki Tani matching it. That was actually quite a bit of hard work there for Jessie. She had the left hand on the far left-hand side of the slope before eventually settling the right hand where it wanted to be. Interesting to see how much that's taken out of her, but I'm sure the climbers will be pretty happy when they rock onto this head wall, because just the angle eases off for them and get a bit more weight on the feet. Take a tiny percentage off the hand, but obviously that's only dependent on how good the handholds actually are. And you can see that left hand absolutely dire up there for Jessie. Just keeps working it, just trying different options with the feet. Big cross through, nice looking move from the root setters there. Just digs into that crimp on the right hand, closes the thumb over. Jessie Pills really digging in here, but it's a tricky little clip with her leg just kind of a little bit tangled on the rope at the moment as well.
Yeah, this is exactly what we saw from Natsuki Tani, just ended up slightly tangled in the rope.
Showed her experience there though, wasn't phased by it. Natsuki struggled with that right foot as well. Jessie just fires out into that big fat undercut now though, doesn't get the thumb in the bolt hole as we saw with Natsuki, but Jessie Pill of old here, this is looking really good. Looking absolutely boxed now though.
Still short of the high point, but that will put her into second place, and you'd have thought she'd have to be very unlucky for that not to be enough for the final. Here goes Jakob Schubert. You can see now that hole 36, the right hand of those two holes that are right together on the left-hand side of your screen. If he can get that, that'll be enough for the final. Most neutrals want to see Jakob Schubert in the final. He is the most successful male lead climber of all time statistically now. Oh, slaps up, but I'm pretty sure that'll be a 36 plus, and that will be enough. That will see him in. We'll wait for confirmation. Still 3 climbers to go on the men's side.
It's actually really interesting looking at Jakob. He's, like I said, so successful in lead, and currently at the start of the season here, he's not kind of got the form that he's looking for. It's really hard to know. A lot of these athletes, they hold their level, the knowledge that they've got close to their chest, rightly so. You know, the World Championships is a little way off yet. He's got time. Jakob has got time. Never count him out. Not quite where he'd want to be. Potentially he's not setting high points here at the moment. Didn't make finals last week in Villars, but should have done enough there to go through if our calculations are correct.
Yeah, he has done enough. It is a 36 plus. He's in 4th place, 3 climbers to go. So Jakob will be climbing tonight. Martin Stranick, Alistair Duval and Yannick Floe, the 3 climbers potentially in the drop zone, 6th, 7th and 8th as it stands right now. Romain Desgranges will be out next. Expect him to get a very good reception from his hometown crowd. And Lučka Rakovic getting ready to climb as well. There she is. So really getting through this men's semi-final, we're going to have quite a long period, about 20 minutes I'd imagine at the end, where it's only women on the wall.
Yeah, Lučka, really good start for the season. Her made finals last week.
So we're at the stage now where we've got 7. She's the 7th to last climber, so we can start confirming finalists. Natsuki Tani will be there. Interesting to see how Romain Desgranges gets on with this route. I don't think he'll like it as much as he would have liked the qualifying routes yesterday, but he's still certainly capable of making the finals and doing well in them here in Chamonix. Looking super smooth so far, 37 years young.
That style of his, he gets the hold, then just locks it down, thumb right over the back of the fingers, crimping it for all it's worth on every single hold.
Oh, it's great. So it's like a vice closing. Both climbers at similar heights. Lučka Rakovic over on the right-hand side.
Ramon just having a little look at this next sequence. Doesn't seem to be 100% confident what to do. Now gets it sorted.
Yeah, I have to say that mistake from Stefano Ghisolfi just looks worse and more people you see do that move. There's just didn't need to take that risk. It was a huge risk to take. Roman just slightly fiddled with the clip, not enough to cost him too much energy, and he's back on horrific crimps on an overhanging 40-degree wall, which for him is like walking up some stairs.
Small crimps, but good crimps. Romain Desgranges' territory. Nice sequence there, nice little unwind, dropping the knee, twisting. Great little sequence. Now he's got to really start pushing the speed through this next section. I think he realised, you can see he just dropped an extra gear there, Romain, and he falls on this side pull undercuts as well.
Oh, that is a heartbreaker for Romain Desgranges. He looked like he was absolutely cruising that.
All of a sudden, that section out on the right-hand side, we talked about it very early on in the semi-final, how hard it looked. And not sure if the chalk build up on those holes later on, or it is just savagely difficult, but big names dropping low on the route. We saw Domen Skofic go there, and now we've seen Romain Desgranges go there.
But that means Martin Stranick is in the final. Could be 2 Czech climbers if a certain Adam Ondra delivers a good performance here. The route setters, I mean, there's been a bit of talk that routes have been too easy over the last few years in league climbing. Certainly not an accusation you could level this week. That men's route looks absolutely desperate. We haven't seen anyone on the head wall yet. Route setters could have just saved themselves a bit of effort, left it blank, just put the top halfway down.
Yeah, seeing Alberto up there, 42 plus, which is like one move just above the angle change there. So, yeah, as soon as we saw Alberto out there, I mean, it was quite a few climbers ago, and he's setting the high point. We did wonder if there's going to be multiple tops, but let's focus on Lučka Rakovic for now, though. Another climber who's really good on the crimps.
Stefano Ghisolfi just walked past me, looks absolutely fed up with the world.
Yeah, he wants the floor to open up and swallow him right now. Just get out of the square and head home.
Yep. I would not be at all surprised if he got himself up to the Mont Blanc tunnel and down across to Arco this afternoon. We shall see. Lučka Rakovic now. Lands that really solidly. Doesn't look too pumped. Alex Megos is underway, bottom right of your screen, second to last climber on the men's side. Top 6 on the men now confirmed for the final. Alberto Jimenez Lopez, Kai Harada, Will Bosit, Jakob Schubert, Sean Mccoll and Martin Stranick. Alex Megos looking to join them. Alistair Duval and Yannick Floey watching nervously to see if they will be displaced in the top 8.
I say Lučka Rakovic actually looked the best in my opinion up to that spot. It was not looking particularly pumped, and now he's having to fight and just rescues it into the undercut. All of a sudden the pump must have got pretty serious. All of a sudden she's looking so smooth and so solid up to that section. Then just drops off. That should be enough to go through.
And she looks pretty happy with that performance, and I think she's right to look happy with that. Oh, Belair just gets his timing wrong, almost got her back on the stage. Yeah, I think she should be happy with that one. I think that will probably be enough. We'll wait for it to come through. Here is Alex Megos. Oh, cut loose, and I don't think he wanted to. Won a World Cup for the first time in Briançon last year, and there were times last year when you kind of got the impression he was learning the game, deciding whether he liked competing. Very much a competitor this year. There's none of that anymore. He takes this very seriously. He's here to win.
Yeah, and didn't really get tested last week. In the end, unfortunately, in that final route, he just didn't really get to see what level he's actually at. But let's see, he seems to have got through that really tricky Saipol section. He had to work really hard for it, but he's just breathing there. This is really, really good competition climbing here. Climbers really having to put the power down.
Yeah, so it's hold 36 you've got to get to, which, as we've said a couple of times, is the right hand of those two holds close together right at the top of the screen. So that's where he's got to be to secure himself a place in the final. Should count back be an issue, though. You want to get the best score you can in the semi-final, and of course Alex won't be aware of what is required. Oh, it looks so risky, that move, and the feet cut loose, but Alex looks super solid. There he is, 36. Yeah, that will be enough for Alex. So he'll be into the final. Great for the neutrals when you get the big names into the final.
This is the hole we saw Kai Harada taking a big rest on with that left heel. Looks like Megos did temporarily have a right heel as well. So let's see if he really milks this rest or he just pushes on into the next section. Somebody saying last week that Megos really doesn't look like heel hooks, but he's really tucked into that one. And pushes through into that nice little undercut move on that big kind of caterpillar selection of round volumes there. Megos pushing towards Alberto Jimenez Lopez's high point here then.
Yeah, here it is. And he will also score, I'm pretty sure, of 42 plus. Same score as Alberto Jimenez Lopez. That will be enough for Alex Megos. So our only chance of seeing a climber really get established on the very top section of the route will be Adam Ondra. Ashima out now on the women's side. Still feels like we're almost waiting for that really big breakthrough performance from Ashima in the World Cups. Vastly successful in the youth competitions, and she's come into the World Cups and she's consistently made semis and finals, but surely that first win is coming at some stage. Ashima, Kiyonaguchi, Yutong Jang, Aimori, Cheyun, Seo and Yanni Gambret still to climb on the women's side. Over on the men's side, it's only Adam Ondra. Ashima shaking out before launching onto the steep section.
Yeah, she's almost having a little rest there before the rest. She's obviously quite comfortable in that position. In some ways that's a slightly better angle to rest, but the hold is more side pulled. You can see left hand there, whereas this one's kind of more conventionally flat semi-jug.
Ladies and gentlemen, representing Czech
Yeah, she's taking a long break here, Ashima.
Adam Ondra.
Didn't look too convinced about that move actually, but it gets it done now. She is a lot shorter than many of the competitors, so that would have looked a long way up, bumping up to that crim. So Adam Ondra starts bottom right of your screen.
It's amazing it's amazing to see two absolute superstars in the sport climbing on the wall at the same time. Great scenes here in Chamonix.
Brilliant stuff, yeah. Adam and Ashima on the same wall at the same time. It could only happen in an IFSC World Cup.
Ashima just gone for a low edge there. Looks like she's going to be slightly wrong-handed. She does manage to flip that right hand before bumping. That was nice route reading there from Ashima. That's obviously something she had pre-decided on beforehand in the observation, which was quite a long time ago now, to be fair. So it's good work from Ashima. Potentially added in a move. It's the side pull. I have to say, Charlie, just watching Ondra on that move, I can realise really now what happened to Stefano. He jumped to the side pull where he actually wanted to jump to the screw-on on top of the volume. Just turned around and had a really good look at the route from our commentary position. Couldn't quite see it from the angle on the screen, but yeah, he basically jumped to the wrong hold. Floated up to the undercut rail where he should have been jumping to the edge.
So Adam Ondra, you just saw when it's closest to the camera, a bit of white tape around his left wrist. That is that very minor wrist injury that's troubling him. Picked it up training in Innsbruck. And yeah, it doesn't seem to be holding him back here in Chamonix. Excellent day for him in the qualifiers. Let's keep an eye now on Ashima.
Ondra just searching for the foot options there. Goes for a cross-through method rather than a match. Now goes back down to the match. Good action on the wall here. Ashima's high as well.
I have to say, Adam's suddenly looking very pumped. And you can see where hole 36 is, and it's a long way from him, and that's what he needs to get in the final. So he needs to somehow recover some energy.
That sideboard section has really taken some scalps here in Chamonix in the men's competition, but Ashima's seemingly just a really slow, steady pace all the way to this point.
Surely getting a bit pushed for time, Ashima, after a very, very long pause lower down.
She does keep looking back at the clock, so let's see. That's hold 42. Still taking the moment to shake and chalk, and Ondra here also doing the same. Next move seems to ease off before that big cut loose move out on the left hand side, and Ashima goes.
That's going to be close for Ashima. See exactly what the judges make of it. So now this is the last action on the men's route, and Adam of course will not know it, but is actually a couple of moves short of where he needs to be.
I think, to be honest, Charlie, Adam Ondra is only interested in the top chains. He wants to put on a fight here.
He is, but he looked like he either didn't quite get the sequence right, or it was harder than he was expecting, but he suddenly got very pumped very quickly, a bit lower down.
Yeah, it was that brutal side pull section. It was the feet, exactly we saw with Domon, just skated the feet up high and right. Oh, that was risky, so close. Just hit that right-hand side that's already blocked.
Yeah, he has done enough now, though. Adam could do with freeing his leg. There it is. Yeah, he has done enough now. That will be him into the final. Does he know it? Surely not.
Surely he doesn't know, or someone has shouted at him.
Well, it would be great if we could see Adam push on and find a top, or at least get close. We haven't seen anyone get their feet onto the head wall. We've seen people slapping up onto the head wall, but not getting established on it.
Remarkable amounts of recovery here from Ondra. He looked in desperate trouble, nearly fell off twice. Gets to a semi-decent hold, chalks up and starts waving to the crowd.
Oh, here he goes, Adam. He's the first person to latch hole 43. Could he give us the fairy tale finish to the semi-final and find a top? The left foot cut loose, and that probably just cost him the move. He sets a new high point. He will climb last in the final, having qualified first from the semi-final. Adam safely through.
I was saying the only thing he's interested in is the chains. He had a really good stab at it, had a really good bit of fun on the wall at the same time, and yeah, good show from the route setters there in the men's competition. Absolutely nailed that one.
Kyo Noguchi now, next climber up.
se souvient, il y a Cole Schubert au championnat du monde à Innsbruck qui gagne et qui est presque désolé parce qu'il voit son copain grimper derrière.
J'ai gagné, mais il y a Adam. Ouais, il a fini deuxième du combiné, non
Il a fini deuxième de la vitesse et premier du combiné.
Jacob. Et la dame. Deuxième, c'est ça. Bon, alors elle aussi, hein, elle c'est... François, c'est
Keogh looking very smooth so far, got that lovely smooth climbing style.
Il y a encore des nanas comme évidemment...
4 times the overall season champion in bouldering. Still 4 climbers to go after a Keogh. It makes you realise just how savage that men's route was.
Et le public touché à Damandra. Damandra Isir. Allez, sortez les téléphones, touchez-le, sortez à Damandra.
Yeah, absolutely brutal men's route already done, and there's still 5 women to go. A Keogh, quiet, calm, as you would expect. Not troubled right now.
Bon, allez à Keogh. Gamba à Keogh, c'est terminé pour les hommes, messieurs, dames. Finish for the men's semi-final.
So that is it for the men's semi-final. We'll confirm the 8 in just a second once we've seen what Akio Noguchi can do. She is there are 4 climbers after her, which means the top 3 as it stands will go through. That's Natsuki Tani, Jessie Pilson, Luchka Rakovic. Everyone below them still not guaranteed their place. So Keogh up to that hole 32, which initially looked like it might prove one of the cruxes. As it turned out, 3 of the first 4 climbers fell on it, and then only 1 has fallen on it since. And it was Christine Schranz, just as I was busy saying that no one had fallen on it since.
Really good rhythm and very few mistakes here from Keogh at the moment. These routes really do seem to come back and hurt the climbers if they make any route reading errors. No such issues for Keogh though, so it's just a case of if she's got the resistance to push through. Higher up on the wall here, the end of that black volume. It's definitely something to aim for here for Keogh. Bit of a fight all of a sudden now on these big undercut. You can see really locking into those undercut crimps.
She's going to need a 49 plus to guarantee herself a place in the final, and she hasn't got that. So she will join the group of nervous waiters and watchers in the athletes area just beneath the foot of the Chamonix wall. They're in the sun, the wall's still very much in the shade, conditions still excellent. Martin Stranik walks past us with a very big grin on his face, and as well he might. Been in bouldering finals, makes the lead final here in Chamonix. Yu Tongjiang of China out next. Interesting enough, 3 climbers in a row born in 2003. Very rare Janja Garnbret is made to look old, born in the distant past of 1999, but she will here.
She's over the hill compared to those guys.
Amazing she still goes. A veteran. Should be on the Champions Tour. So, interestingly enough, the crowd not dispersing at all despite the men being done. They're here to watch every second of everyone, which is good to see. To call Chamonix a climbers' town is barely to do it justice, though. It's more like the climbers' town.
I think if you walk through the town without crampons and an ice axe, you're an outsider. You've got to have an outdoor brand kind of full kit, otherwise you're not welcome in Chamonix, seemingly.
Yeah, Chamonix. I mean, if you want to buy carabiners, Chamonix Town Centre's great. If you want to buy a suit, or you know what normal people buy,
get a haircut.
Get a haircut. You got no chance. But if it is the ultimate climbers' town.
So even on my walk home last night, about 11 p.m, there was a guy camping in the back of his small car, reading his guidebook, getting ready for the routes the next day. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, the official population of the town is 10,000, but there's probably double that with bum climbers living in the woods. String up hammocks. The old Jim Pope accommodation. Loves his hammock. Yutong Jiang now.
Goes for that method of matching the yellow fiberglass there. Missing out one of the small screw-ons on the volume. Used to be about 50-50 as to which method people would have preferred there. See, the route really starting to build up in chalk actually, but I think with these routes they seem to have a lot of kind of in-cut holes. It's mostly polyurethane, so sometimes that can feel a bit slicker under the hands, but with a lot of in-cut edges that's kind of going to suit the skin conditions a bit better than a lot of big fat slopers and pinches. You see in the men's qualification highlights yesterday, Jakob Schubert saying he really struggled with a lot of the texture and the friction. Certainly not cold here in Chamonix, but the wall is completely in the shade.
It's pretty cold in the shade. Yeah, it's conditions couldn't really be better for climbing in the shade. Adam Ondra's just walked past. We're going to try and get a few interviews with some of the finalists before they disappear from the wall, and we'll show them to you at the start of the final. Adam, obviously one of the people we would like to see. Yutong Jiang, meanwhile, is looking very steady, absolute zero fuss at this stage. Really getting into the heart of this route now, Yutong Jiang. 4 climbers still to go. That means Ashima, by the way, has confirmed her place in the final. Akio Noguchi, who we saw a second ago, ended up on 42. Quite a few climbers around that 42 plus. 5 climbers falling between 42 and 40. Kind of a cluster towards the bottom of the rankings for the provisional places in the final. But she'll need a 42 plus to get herself into the final, Yutong Jiang. Just having a look where 42 plus is. It's the bit last volume before the head wall, the circular volume. So triangular volume. Actually, forget that. It's this hold on the right. Getting lost between our black photocopy and the colour wall. No, it's that one there. There it is.
Yeah, that's the hold that we've seen quite a few athletes struggle on, so that should be enough.
Yeah, it should be enough for her. That's hold 43 and 44, so that'll move her up into 4th place, which will be enough. So Yutong Jiang has secured herself a place in the final. It's a multinational final over on the women's side as it stands right now. The 5 confirmed finalists are from 5 different countries.
So this is where we've seen the struggles really start all of a sudden. Everyone seems to really cruise until the feet are on the very top of this big red angle change, and all of a sudden it gets really hard really quickly. And just I think it was the heel that slipped there. It was a good fight. Really impressive performance from Yutong Jiang though. I enjoyed watching that.
Yes, it was a really strong performance. It will be enough. Just looking, I think that'll put her into 4th place. Won't be enough to get her up into 3rd, but either way, into the final without too many worries. Ai Mori, the next climber out. Chaehyun Seo and Yanya Garnbrett. Seo, of course, the surprise package from Vila, and the question was, would she be able to follow it up? And she's most certainly done that here in Chamonix.
Yeah, 2 tops in the qualifiers and really didn't seem to struggle on the lines at all. I'm actually quite excited to see someone give Yanya a really good test here.
As I say, crowd not dispersing at all. Thoroughly enjoying the show. Ai Mori still to come. Chaehyun Seo and Yanya Garnbrett. Paragliders up in the air. Quite a strong wind. Can't imagine it's the easiest flying conditions. Very spectacular.
Ever been up there, Charlie, on a paraglider?
Yes, I used to have a paraglider. Yeah.
Tough life.
Yeah, well, I think the reason I'm so universally liked is I don't complain. Yeah, no, I had a paraglided from the Brevon a few times.
Would you say it's a sport, paragliding? It's just sitting down, isn't it? Getting blown around by the wind.
Feels like a sport when it's not going very well, that's for sure. Found it a bit too gripping, to be honest. Had to sell my paraglider. So, Mori underway now.
Là, je vais te simplifier la vie pour la finale de ce soir. La petite chinoise, son surnom c'est Tong Tong. Donc maintenant tu peux la prononcer Tong Tong. So we can say Tong Tong.
Mori looking to improve on last week's performance. Bronze medal there, so he's got to get through the semi-final first. One of so many climbers to fall on that 35+ move from last week. Big talking point going into this competition obviously was the style of the routes. Slightly different style here in the Chamonix semi-final so far, and Mori consistently right up there in the rankings.
C'était le jour à l'Istère, franchement l'Istère était énorme. Bon, mesdames et messieurs, Mori, ensuite la coréenne et puis la numéro 1 mondiale, l'extra qui va tenter le.
Just had a quick word with Graham Alderson, IFSC technical delegate. He's forgotten more about climbing than most people know, and was saying Alex Megos has been marked down for using a bolt, but only marked down to 8th place. May well be. I mean, they might appeal anyway. The German team might review the footage, because remember, you can touch the bolt, you can't use it. That's the key, as we learned with Kokoro Fuji last week. But yeah, the score is showing up that Alex Megos got a 35, and as I say, it's enough to get him into the final.
Well, in that scenario, the judges will have video footage that they can play back, and I'd rather them than me to try and decide whether you stood on it or you used it. I guess they're going to look for, was it clear there was any sort of propulsion from the foot? Did the muscles flex once he stood on it? Really tough call. It actually costs the teams to make an appeal. There is a value to it. I can't remember what it was, but it's not even that cheap. So to take the appeal process seriously, they have to pay to make an appeal. So if he's already through, then maybe they won't bother. But
if the appeal is successful, it's refunded. But if it's not, and I think it was €80 last year. I mean, it's not breaking the bank, but it's enough that you. It's really to prevent teams just throwing in 20 appeals just in case they win one. If you put a price on it, even if it's only €80, it just means there's an incentive not to appeal constantly. So we'll see what the German team do. I have to say, if I was them, I might just keep my €80 in my pocket and get Alex ready for the final.
Yeah, use that for fuel money to get to the next competition on the team bus.
Well, Jim Pope's talking about walking to Briançon, so maybe the German team will join him if they can't afford a tank of fuel to get down there. So I was over talking to Graham. How's Mori been getting on?
Oh, super smooth as always for I was just saying that bronze medal last week for her in Villars. Obviously didn't get tested as quite like to see from the athletes on that final route, but so far so good, no mistakes, and the better climbers coming out later on in this competition really just kind of cruising through these early sections. But still, it's a route that really punishes any slight mistakes, which doesn't really seem to have made any at the moment. But this is making her work a little bit around this toe hook section. Currently does actually have that quick draw clip, the tricky one that Julie Chanaudy struggled with. She managed to get around it in the end, but has actually spent quite a lot of time and no doubt energy just getting through that kind of feet first section.
Still fighting here, Mori. Very strong performance. Doesn't actually look that tired, which is quite amazing, really, when you consider where she is. Whoa, suddenly that looked a little bit in doubt.
That's where we saw Molly Thompson-Smith going all the way out to the end here before clipping that quick draw. So let's see if Aimori can actually reverse it and get the clip done. There's 2 little holds on the left-hand side, that 2 little screw-ons added. So it's exactly what we saw from Molly. So it's hold 42, so she surely needs to make the next move up to sort herself out with a finals place. Now she's going to go for the reverse. Desperate scene to have to try and reverse that section. Does get it done, though, gets the clip done. Like you said, it's a move in itself.
Is the rope actually correctly? It is, yeah. So it looked to me as if the rope was perhaps caught in the gate of the carabiner, but she has got it in, my bad. Yeah, needs to get this next move done to secure that place in the final. Doesn't look, all things considered, that tired. All things are relative, but when you think about how absolutely knackered people have looked at this stage, Aimori looks relatively in control. This sadly doesn't look very good for her compatriot Akio Noguchi, who got 42 herself and is currently sitting in 7th place, and I fear may not have done enough.
Interesting is the way she used that sloper, ended up having a left hand on the screw-on jib rather than a right hand, and just used the sloper itself with the right hand, but actually made it look really smooth. I think they're saying that the time is up on that one.
Yeah, the venue MC calling out. As I say, we haven't got a line of sight to a clock from here. Slow and steady wins the race, though. She climbed very smoothly. I think could have gone quite a bit further given enough time. But Aimori secures her place in the final. Still waiting for her score to be confirmed. 2 climbers still to go. Now this will be fascinating. Chaehyun Seo of South Korea climbing next. What can she do?
Really excited for this moment. Actually, been waiting all semi-finals to see Chaehyun have a go at this route. I think we could be pushing for a top here, Charlie. Put it out there now. Between her and Yanya, that would be an awesome way to finish. Put a big show on here for the crowd that has all waited for the final climbers here. I'll put my €5 on it now. We're going to see a top.
Last of the big spenders. Who's going to get it?
Both.
You think both? All right, you heard it here first. That's the scene here in Chamonix, Place du Mont Blanc. Still pretty full. The people sitting, I should warn you now, people sitting, you will not be allowed to sit in the final. They cram people in the final. You'll be told to stand up and make space if you're sitting before the final. So enjoy it while it lasts, because there is no space at all come this evening. Right, so we'll see you for the final. Mike Langley's already told us we're about to see 2 tops here, so no point watching.
Yeah, another wild stab in the dark from the commentary box, but she really does look like the real deal. Seo, really enjoyed watching her in Villar, and just it qualifies 2 tops alongside Yanya, and really didn't seem to struggle too much. But unless she makes a silly mistake, we saw it with Stefano jumping to the wrong hold. It's very, very possible. But I think a route of this style could suit her quite nicely.
What's nice as well about the time of day is that the sun hasn't affected the semi-final. It hasn't swung around. I'm just looking around at the routes. No part of the women's route is in the sun, so conditions will be pretty much the same for everyone. Delighted to say part of it's arrived now in our commentary box after a reasonably cold last hour. Probably won't go down in history as the greatest alpine epic Chamonix has ever witnessed, me being a bit chilly, but you know, still nice to see the sun. Yeah, exactly, in my Hawaiians, but still nice to get the sun. But the wall unaffected.
No, in comparison to Villar last week, where it was so hot, the sun was actually on the wall until sort of midday there in Villars. Let's see what she makes of this early move. If there was to be a mistake, we have seen one climber drop on this move. Had to try a little bit there, with a little bit of a foot swap.
Yeah, the cut loose didn't look 100% secure, but she's back on track now. What could she do? How long a break will she take? She's behind the wall, depending on her English level, she may well have understood Aimori, being called down. So she might be aware of just how important time is here.
Does use a slightly different sequence through that little crossover section of the crimps there. Went right hand, cross through with the left. So nice clean climbing, nice clean sequence. Seen Shima and Akio both use an extra move on that black volume out on the right as well, sort of flipping the right hand around before bumping up. So no route reading errors so far from Cheyu and Seo.
Yeah, she's somewhat disappearing from view there. There we go, that's a bit more like it. So she's up to that 32. You can see in the scores there, a big cluster of climbers pretty much in the middle rankings. Needs a 42 to get herself into the final. Kyo Noguchi, I suspect, may end up being disappointed. Ditto Molly Thompson-Smith. It's a shame for her after a really tough period of injuries, and I suspect could be eliminated with the last climber. Never a nice feeling to be in the potential drop zone and having Janja Garnbret coming out to the wall.
Just listened to a bit of content online from the good guys at the Plastic Weekly podcast saying that Cheyu Seo actually has a really good climbing heritage. Her dad owns a climbing gym in South Korea, so it seems that if you want to be really good, you want to basically live in the climbing centre. Seems to work for a lot of athletes, but putting the years in, she was born in 2003, she's only 15 years old, so much experience. You can see her route reading ability, her style on the walls, so few mistakes, so relaxed. Rumours are she's actually climbed 8C plus on the rock outdoors as well, so she's no slouch outside as well as in the competition. So she hasn't, in many ways, come out of nowhere here. But very few senior World Cups.
Yeah, she's looking completely composed here. Already secured her place in the final by latching 42 plus. So this is all just a bonus for our viewing pleasure. There's no doubt that she'll be in the final now. High point set by Natsuki Tani of 52 plus, which I have to say I think Seo could be closing in on pretty quickly. That volcano hold above is 51.
Yeah, opting to match here before getting the left foot up, just trying to search around for different foot options. Will she try and squeeze in a left foot? Doesn't. All of a sudden it got pretty hard pretty quickly there, no top. Luckily I didn't bet anybody, nobody saw me on my €5, so I'm going to still afford the coffee around here for lunch. That was good though from her. I think, slightly disappointed that top section, but it really seems as soon as you go into those big burly undercuts, it gets pretty hard. But let's see, last week it was a little bit hard to decide where the different athletes were, but Janja Garnbret on that final route seemed to be a bit of a step above in terms of the power high up on the wall. So Janja Garnbret, final climber out.
Yeah, and we haven't seen a top on either semi-final route so far. Janja Garnbret still to come. Looked like Seo just slightly got tired towards the top, made a slight reading mistake, feet cut loose, and when you're that tired, that really costs you.
Yeah, it's a really powerful sort of right hand shoulder move at the top there. She had her right hand on this sort of wide screw on pinch, needed to get the left foot up just to lock up to that volcano. You can see it's just above the final quick draw that's currently got the rope running through it now. Just opted to try and get a bit of a match, and at that point the body cut away from the wall on the right hand side, and there was not much coming back from that one, unfortunately.
So she's getting the big introduction I can hear from the venue NC, just explaining in French to the crowd that she won every World Cup in the boulder this season. She won the first lead World Cup of the season. She's dominating women's climbing in 2 disciplines. It's Janja Garnbret hunting down a 3rd Chamonix win.
Charlie, Janja is someone you obviously know really well. We interviewed her many, many times. When she's in this scenario, do you think that she's in the mindset of, I am going to go until I absolutely fall off, I'm going to go for a top basically?
Yeah.
Or is she going to just try and get enough?
No, she's going for the top, and I think one of the one of the reasons for that, as well as her inherent competitiveness and desire to climb and desire to top route, is so many times, it's not been quite so much the case in the last couple of seasons, but certainly when Janja had her first 2 very successful seasons, it so often came back to countback. She won a lot of World Cups on countback to semi-finals, where there was a route like this desperately hard. No one had really made much of a dent in it. She topped it, and if there was a stopper move in the final, she won on countback. So she knows that just enough is not good enough. She needs to hammer home her superiority in every round possible.
Yeah, there's value to going.
There's
really
a value,
hard in
exactly.
semi-finals.
That was a much more succinct way of what I was trying to say. Yeah, there's a tangible value to going hard, and also psychologically. I mean, you're in isolation later on. Let's say Janja Garnbret finds a top here. She'll be looking at 7 people that fell off without getting established on the head wall. If she can top the route, you've got an enormous psychological advantage. And you're Janja Garnbret, so you've got a psychological advantage anyway.
Well, and also, when the climbers do come out in the final route, the crowd responds to how well they're doing on the route compared to other climbers. So if all of a sudden the crowd starts going ballistic, you know you've probably got a high point or very close to a high point.
And you also know if she could, we're talking as if she's already topped the route. She's got a lot of work to do here, Janja, but if she could find a top, if they undercook the route and there are multiple tops, you only have to do what everyone else does to win the competition, because you win on countback. So it's there's a very tangible benefit, but she likes topping routes. She likes
the challenge.
She likes the challenge. She doesn't like easy routes. She's been fed up at times with routes she's found too easy, and she wants the challenge. She welcomes the challenge. And so if the route setters give her a challenge, which is quite a tough thing to do, but if they manage it, then she relishes it, yeah.
She is just working a little bit here, actually, Charlie. I have to say that she is being challenged already on the route. Starting to shake out slightly.
She's got a 100% record of making finals in lead World Cups, Janja Garnbret. Never missed a final. It will happen one day. Surely it will happen one day.
Let's see how she deals with this next section then. How cleanly can she get through it? Just on the foothold at the moment, drops down to the good jug and seemingly has got through that tricky little feet first section without too many issues.
I can't help thinking what must be so disheartening sometimes for Janja's competition is how calm she looks. It's one thing to do the moves, boxed out of your brain, fighting, but Janja just looks like she's cruising.
Well, I mean, there's no better example of that than last week in the heat, the semi-final, no chalk bag, and still top the route, the only one to do it.
Yeah, she's probably clipped it on with a bike chain, to be honest, this time. Sun beginning to swing around now in Chamonix, but the top of the wall still untouched, which is great. Means there's no advantage whatsoever for climbing first, last, or wherever else in terms of weather. Janja Garnbret experiencing the same conditions as everyone else. Needs to get across to that hold 42, the furthest right of those black volumes, 2/3 of the way up the screen. There's actually a little screw-on jib on the right-hand side that's hold 42. She needs to get to that to secure her place and then move off it.
Has got that clip done early. We've seen a couple of climbers having to reverse for that section. Molly Thompson-Smith, but Janja, as with many other successful climbers through that move, does get the clip early. Let's see how she uses this little screw on the next slope.
And we use Janja. She was about to move off that 42. Let's just double check exactly where that leaves her. I'm pretty sure that leaves her in 8th place. She did not look tired. She didn't look phased.
Stunned.
There is
silence.
Stunned silence here. She's never missed a lead World Cup final. Let's have a look. The judges will give her 42. Mike, she's 9th. Janja Garnbret has missed the final.
I don't know what to say, Charlie. I'm just completely gobsmacked. She just seemingly dropped off the wall.
That is the first time in IFSC Lead World Cup history, Janja Garnbret history, that she has not made it through to a Lead World Cup final. History made here in Chamonix. The biggest shock, the shock to end all shocks. Janja Garnbret cruised up. got to the hole she needed to get to. All she needed to do was move towards the next hole from it in order to secure the plus. It would have been enough. We need to see that again. But Janja Garnbret has missed the final in Chamonix. It is the first time in her lead World Cup history. She is in 9th place.
I'm still totally stunned. We were just talking about the next move, how she's going to use the sloper. I was talking before that she's probably going to top the route, as she does time and time again, week in, week out. She was just standing there. We need to see what happened there. She was just happy. Looked like she was chalking up, easily got the clip down below, and just dropped off the wall.
There it is, Janja Garnbret, 42. If she'd got the 42 plus, she'd have been in with Molly Thompson-Smith, Ashima Shirashi, Ai Mori, Luch Karakovic, Jessie Pilch, Yutong Jiang, Chaehyun Seo and Natsuki Tani. The surprise to end all surprises, it's a shock. Janja Garnbret, we were talking, I have to say, Mike, as if she was already in, because she's always in.
She is always in.
It's as close to a sure bet as you can get, and Janja Garnbret misses out. I can barely believe what I'm seeing. We'll try and secure a replay for you.
But you did say there, Charlie, at some point, with a 100% record, she will make a mistake. Surely at some point she's going to make a mistake. I have to say, watching Janja with such a record of 100% attendance in finals, surely one day there will be a mistake. Today was the day.
Well, scarcely believable stuff. Julia Chanaudy also misses out. Well, unbelievable. We don't want to focus too much on one climber. There are, of course, 8 who have successfully made it through, but the reality is when Janja doesn't make it through, it is a big shock. So she misses out, 9th place for her. Over on the men's side, what a final we are in for there. Adam Ondra will be joined by Alberto Gines Lopez. I scored just updating there as Alex Megos was re-scored, but he's still in the final. Alberto Gines Lopez, Kai Harada, Will Bosi, Jakob Schubert, Sean Mccoll, Martin Stranick, Alex Megos, Alistair Duval and Yannick Floe, the top 10. We'll, as I say, keep an eye on the IFSC website for scoring. Depends if Team Germany appeal that to get Alex a little higher up the rankings. But he's in the final anyway. Again, big surprises over on the men's side. Last week's winner, Sascha Layman. He is not in the final. Roman de Grange is not in the final. Domin Skofitz is not in the final. Surprises everywhere. Yeah. Okay, and you can see one of the biggest surprises of all, Stefano Ghisolfi in 26th place, 13 plus, took a big unnecessary risk with a big jump out right, low down. We've got a replay of Janja Garnbret, I'm told. Let's have a look. Right, so
this was just lower down. She did get that clip quite easily. Seemingly, you can see the left arm elbow is a little bit raised there, but didn't really look too tight at this stage. It's a relatively clean clip. There's a pair of undercuts here that she was moving into. She went out to that hole right 42 on the end of the volume. This stage competition, there was no reason to think that she was in any real trouble.
So that's 42 that she's got there. I'm pretty sure it's not quite the right angle, but that's 42. So what gives here? She's chalking up.
Super relaxed.
Oh, did she go to match with the left hand and there wasn't quite enough space and she kind of dropped onto it before it was secure?
Really strange. I think, to me, it looked like, it's totally hard to say. I think that she looked like the body just relaxed a tiny little bit, went to match, and it just pirouetted her off the wall potentially, just bringing that left hand round the corner, just spun the body weight slightly into a slightly awkward position, and the feet potentially weren't quite there for it. Very, very odd mistake.
Yeah, very strange mistake. So Janja Garnbret misses out on the final, but what finals we have for you. Nice combination of the old veterans, the big favourites, and a few bolters as well, looking to get their first World Cup wins. A lot to be decided here in the Place du Mont Blanc here in Chamonix. That's all from us in the semi-final, though. We'll be back. We're live 8:30 this evening, Chamonix time. It's the women first, followed by the men. You do not want to miss it. Place du Mont Blanc will be packed. Mont Blanc will be behind us with the sun setting on it, and myself and Mike Langley will be there. Should be a fantastic evening. We'll see you then.